Chapter 1501. Spacetime Instant. Spacetime was frozen at this moment. Tianyang had a calm smile on his lips as he looked at the two people in disbelief in the frozen spacetime. Spacetime origin. Although spacetime was frozen, the two people's thoughts did not stop. Instead, they looked at Tianyang in shock. This was spacetime origin. No matter what, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei found it hard to imagine that there was someone who could control such a powerful origin power. The spacetime origin and the space origin only lacked the time origin. However, space origin was easy to form, but time origin was difficult. When Tianyang broke through to the Saint Realm and condensed chaos origin, countless great path insights were born in his mind, and he captured the spacetime origin that belonged to spacetime origin and created spacetime instant. In the Meru domain of the Western Buddha Pure Land, he received the inheritance of Saint Monk Shumi and condensed spacetime origin. Even the heavenly sun could forget about touching upon the mysteries of time. The spacetime instant was not long, only less than 2 seconds. Yang Xingwan did not even have time to react to what had happened and had already disappeared. Boom, boom. 2 loud sounds rang out. The attacks that Zhang Ming and Ling Fei had released previously with perfect coordination bombarded the walls of the Commandery Princess's residence. This formation was only at the peak of the heaven-grade Great Saint level. In the face of the full blow of these 2 Saint Emperors, it naturally exploded instantly. The entire Commandery Princess's residence, along with the 1,000 feet of space outside the Commandery Princess's residence, was blasted into pieces. However, only Tianyang, who was supposed to be the only target of the 2 attacks, stood by the side and scathed with a smile on his face. As for Zhang Ming and Ling Fei, they had no intention of continuing to attack. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat. They stood where they were and did not even dare to breathe loudly. In the previous 2 seconds of spacetime instant, Tianyang had hundreds of ways to kill them. It was just that Tianyang did not do it. Now, do you still want to fight? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei quickly shook their heads and trembled. Then, let's talk about compensation. Also, why would an inner court disciple of the Great Sun sect appear in this small kingdom of the Cloudfire territory, the Darkfire dynasty? The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up, revealing a brilliant smile. However, this smile was terrifying in the eyes of Zhang Ming and Ling Fei. We are here because the Cloudfire Dao contest is about to begin. The Great Sun sect has sent us to various places in the Cloudfire territory to find cultivators to participate in the Cloudfire Dao contest. Under the coercion of Tianyang's powerful strength, no matter how unwilling Zhang Ming and Ling Fei were, they could only obediently submit. Because the 2 of us are from the Darkfire dynasty, we are in charge of searching for talents in the Darkfire dynasty. Moreover, we heard that there is a former 15th elder of the Outer Sanctum in Qingyuan City who can enter the top 500 of the Hidden Dragon ranking in the Cloudfire territory. That is why we came here. Our goal is to complete the mission, Zhang Ming said honestly. However, his eyes still flashed with hatred from time to time. After all, he was an inner court disciple of the Cloudfire territory's overlord, the Great Sun sect, who was high and mighty and worshipped wherever he went. Now, he had become a prisoner with his true essence sealed by Tianyang. In the face of Tianyang's inquiry, he could only answer honestly. This was what made Zhang Ming and Ling Fei the most angry. Cloudfire Dao contest. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. There is also the Cloudfire territory's Hidden Dragon ranking? What is that? Hearing this, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei were stunned. They both revealed expressions of disbelief. This Yang Tian was so powerful that he could easily suppress 2 inner court disciples of the Great Sun sect. He actually did not know about the Cloudfire Dao contest and the Cloudfire territory's Hidden Dragon ranking. At this time, Yang Xingwan, who had just recovered after being out of danger, explained. Yang Tan, the Cloudfire territory's Hidden Dragon ranking, is actually a genius ranking in the Cloudfire territory. Almost every territory in the Divine Realm has a Hidden Dragon ranking. The hidden dragon ranking only includes cultivators under 200 years old. If you're over 200 years old, you'll be automatically kicked out of the hidden dragon ranking. Previously, Wang Lingen of the Wang family was a strong contender for the top 500 of the hidden dragon ranking. In the Xuanhua dynasty, there has not been a person on the hidden dragon ranking for decades. The lowest ranking on the hidden dragon ranking is only 500. As for what the Cloud Fire Dao contest is, I don't know. Yang Qingwan said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. It seemed that it was similar to the genius ranking in the Xintian Great World and the Tianshao Great World. However, the Cloud Fire Territory's hidden dragon ranking was more valuable. Wang Lingen reached the realm of Heavenly Great Saint at the age of a few decades. In the Xintian Great World, he was still a top genius. Only Bodhi Buddha, the young master of the Void Mountain, and a few others could compete with him. In the Cloud Fire Territory's hidden dragon ranking, he was only at the bottom. It was even doubtful whether he could enter. Although the Cloud Fire Territory was huge, it was only the size of the Xintian Great World's Eastern Divine Land, Central Divine Land, Western Buddhist Pure Land, Southern Devil Land, and the 4 great spiritual states combined. However, there were almost 500 times more geniuses in the Xintian Great World. This showed that the God World was extraordinary. It's not just the hidden dragon ranking. The hidden dragon ranking is only a ranking for martial arts geniuses under 200 years old. Above the hidden dragon ranking is the true dragon ranking. However, the true dragon ranking is not limited to the Cloud Fire Territory. It covers the existence of hundreds of territories. Zhang Ming sneered. However, for people like you, the hidden dragon ranking is a terrifying existence that you can't climb even if you cultivate for 200 years. As for the true dragon ranking, don't even think about it. Even in the Great Sun sect, only the inner sect eldest senior brother can enter the true dragon ranking. However, people like eldest senior brother disdain trials like the Cloud Fire Dao contest. So, what is the Cloud Fire Dao contest? Tianyang said faintly and released a powerful aura. There is also a bit of space-time origin energy in front of Zhang Ming. Seeing this, Zhang Ming immediately shut his mouth. The space-time origin energy had almost killed him previously. Now that Tianyang took it out, Zhang Ming's psychological trauma was triggered. The Cloud Fire Dao contest is a huge trial jointly organized by the Great Sun sect and other sects in the Cloud Fire Territory. This trial ground was found by the ancestors of the Great Sun sect a long time ago. It was a relic left behind by a powerful deity. Therefore, in the Cloud Fire Territory, countless young geniuses want to enter and obtain the opportunity to become a demigod. It's not impossible for them to reach the divine state and become a giant in the Cloud Fire Territory. Zhang Ming laughed proudly. The moment he mentioned the Cloud Fire Dao contest, his confidence exploded. He even forgot that his life was in Tianyang's hands. Hearing this, Tianyang pondered for a moment. Where is the relic of the deity? It's in the vast sky, sacred mountain in the east of the Cloud Fire Territory. However, if you try to sneak in, you can give up. The Great Sun sect won't let people enter so easily. Zhang Ming said disdainfully. Hearing this, Tianyang rubbed his chin. At this moment, a clear, tender, and anxious voice suddenly rang in Tianyang's mind. Chapter 1502. Ask quickly, where is Shao Divine Mountain? The vast expanse Holy Spirit's voice rang out. Tianyang was shocked when he heard it. Then he was overjoyed. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, you're awake? Ever since the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit had used the power of the Heavens Expanse Saint Palace to help Tianyang block the Undying Prince's divine power storm in the passageway to the divine realm, the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit had fallen into a deep slumber due to the overdraft of his divine power. Even after Tianyang had recovered and easily suppressed Zhang Ming and Ling Fei from the Great Sun sect, the vast expanse Holy Spirit had not woken up. Now that he had suddenly woken up, Tianyang was naturally overjoyed. I just woke up. The purity of the heaven and earth spiritual energy you absorbed earlier was not bad, so I woke up a little faster. The vast expanse Holy Spirit had no time to explain and quickly repeated himself. Ask me how Shao Divine Mountain is. Hearing how anxious the vast expanse Holy Spirit was, Tianyang's face quickly turned serious. If the vast expanse Holy Spirit was so anxious, it was obvious that how Shao Divine Mountain was not ordinary. Where is how Shao Divine Mountain? Tianyang did not hesitate and immediately activated the space-time origin energy to seal the space around Zhang Ming. Zhang Ming was stunned when he saw that. He had no idea what was going on. Yang Tian had suddenly used so much space-time origin energy to seal him. Was he going to kill him? However, other than Zhang Ming, Tianyang still had Ling Fei to ask. Tianyang did not even need to ask to kill him. How Shao Divine Mountain is in the east of the Cloud Fire territory. It's under the direct jurisdiction of the Great Sun sect. Map, Tianyang said. Hearing that, Zhang Ming's face turned ugly. He had never been treated like this before. However, the origin energy of time and space was mixed with wisps of sharp origin energy of Sword Dao. Although Zhang Ming did not know that this was the origin under the cover of the origin of time and space, there was no doubt that it could kill him. Very quickly, Zhang Ming took out map. The vast expanse Holy Spirit did not even need Tianyang to take it. He scanned it directly, and his tone became more anxious. This is the place I told you about before, the place where the heavens expanse Emperor's treasure is the Dusty Land. Upon hearing this, Tianyang's pupils suddenly shrank. Before he stepped into the God Realm, the vast expanse Holy Spirit had helped him locate the location so that he could directly land in that place. However, due to the obstruction of the undying prince's divine power, he had failed. However, the landing point should not be far away. However, Tianyang did not expect that it would be delivered to him in such a way. Since you are here to invite Wang Lingen to participate in the Cloud Fire Dao Forum, you must have the qualifications to participate in the Cloud Fire Dao Forum, Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, Zhang Ming's expression changed greatly. Could it be that you hand it over and I'll spare your life? In the end, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei were released by Tianyang. It wasn't that Tianyang was afraid of the Great Sun sect and didn't dare to kill them. However, Tianyang had used a very kind method to obtain the qualifications to participate in the Cloud Fire Dao Forum from Zhang Ming. He still needed Zhang Ming to go back and activate it. However, Tianyang was not afraid that Zhang Ming would go back on his word. Tianyang had left a trace of the true flames of destruction in their bodies. Even across the entire Cloud Fire territory, Tianyang could sense what the two of them were doing. He could take their lives with just a thought. As for Tianyang, he stayed in Qingyuan City to communicate with the vast expanse Holy Spirit. I see. The Heavens Expanse Emperor's treasure was obtained by someone from the God Realm in such a way. The vast expanse Holy Spirit revealed the body of an 11 or 12-year-old boy and said, however, at this point, the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit's lips curled up into a smile. Unless the person who obtains it has the strength of the Heavens Expanse Emperor, the Heavens Expanse Shrine is required to open it. In other words, only you can obtain the real treasure left behind by the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said with a smile. Hearing that, Tianyang's eyes lit up. The treasure that the Great Sun sect discovered but did not have the ability to obtain, and countless sects in the Cloud Fire territory coveted but could not get their hands on, could be easily obtained by him. This seemed to be a good idea. As for the surrounding treasures, after so many years, the seal has loosened and leaked a trace of the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord's aura. The Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord is not an ordinary god. It is not strange that a trace of his aura can create a treasure land. The vast expanse Holy Spirit said proudly. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded. That was true. From the vast expanse Holy Spirit, one could vaguely infer the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord's powerful strength. Even the sword Godling Tian that Tianyang sensed in the Ling Tian ancient sword's memory and the Sky Tyrant Dragon God that he had seen face to face were not as powerful as the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord. As for the Emperor Xianyuan, Tianyang thought that Xianyuan Changsheng was exaggerating. Speaking of which, The path to God can only allow one person to pass through. Previously, I used the Firmament Emperor Sword's power to forcefully bring Yuhan here and asked you to hide Luoluo. Is Luoluo in the vast expanse temple now? Tianyang asked. Among the people around him, Tianyang missed Ling Yuhan and by Luoluo the most. By Luoluo is fine. Although the vast expanse temple is only a fragment of the vast expanse temple, it still has the ability to bring people. The vast expanse, Holy Spirit said. However, ever since Bai Luoluo entered the God world, she has been in a deep sleep. Previously, she only needed to be called to wake up. This time, she can't wake up no matter what. Hearing that, Tianyang frowned. However, when he thought of Bailuo's identity as the fire god soul essence, he could only sigh. As long as it was related to the god state, he could not do anything. If that's the case, I'll go back first. The vast expanse, Holy Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly. The vast expanse, Holy Spirit, then returned to the Vientiane Sky Market. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Then, Yang Qingwan walked in. Yang Tian. The news of you killing the 3 most important people in the Wang family's main bloodline, almost wiping out the Wang family, and forcing the Great Sun Sect's messenger to retreat has spread throughout Qingyuan City. Even the people from the imperial family know about it. So, Yang Qingwan said fearfully. Hearing that, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Is someone here to look for me again? Bang! That's right, it's me. Before Yang Qingwan could reply, the door that had just closed was kicked open by someone. A young man with a handsome face and a flamboyant expression walked in with large strides. He glanced at Tianyang with disdain and said disdainfully, I'm the young master of the chief family of the Flame Capital Dynasty. Yang Tian, come with me. The monarch of the Xuanhua Dynasty wants to see you. The monarch wants to see me? Chapter 1503. Xuanhua Dynasty, Yin Capital, Chief Family. Tianyang caught the information exposed by the young man in an instant, but his expression did not change. Success, another idiot. It was most likely that the young man's achievements were too amazing, so he came in person and waited for him to verify it. Qi Xiaofeng. Hearing this, Yang Qingwan's expression changed drastically. She shouted angrily, Didn't you say you would show some respect to Yang Tian? If this Yang Tian was really an expert who could easily kill the 3 most important people of the main branch of the Wang family, and even force the messenger of the Great Sun Sect to retreat, I, Qi Xiaofeng, would naturally respect him. It wouldn't matter even if I treated him as an ancestor. The young man named Qi Xiaofeng took out a fan out of nowhere and waved it pretentiously. A wisp of light flashed across his eyes. But now it seems that the so-called Yang Tian who easily killed the main branch of the Wang family and forced the 2 messengers of the Great Sun Sect to retreat is just a liar. Qi Xiaofeng shook his head and sighed. Qingwan, you are still too naive to believe the boasting of this kind of person. In the prosperous Yin capital imperial city, this kind of low-level swindler would have already been killed on the side of the road. Hearing this, Yang Qingwan was speechless. Could it be that everyone in Qingyuan City is blind or an accomplice of a liar? You can't say it like that. I've never been to the Wang clan before, so I don't know what they look like. However, seeing is believing. This person doesn't have any aura at all, yet he pretends to be profound. That's why you all fell for his trick. Now that I've exposed his identity as a liar, what do you think his reaction will be? Qi Xiaofeng waved his fan gently and said, and Tianyang. There was no reaction at all. Today, he did not guess correctly. Or rather, he did not guess completely. This person's brain circuit was so strange that it did not seem like an ordinary idiot. Even now, you're still putting on an act? Seeing that Tianyang did not move, Qi Xiaofeng's face suddenly darkened. Do you know who the young man standing in front of you who exposed your identity as a liar is? Qi Xiaofeng shouted. A moment later, he unleashed the true vitality of a heavenly great sage. I'm Qi Xiaofeng, the young master of the Qi clan in the Yin capital of the Xuanhua Dynasty. I'm only 92 years old, but I'm already a heavenly great saint. In just a few years, he will be able to inherit the Qi family. Now, he is ranked 497th in the top 500 on the Hidden Dragon list in the Cloud Fire territory. Qi Xiaofeng said coldly, "Now, you know how powerful I am, right? You should also know what kind of peerless genius is on the Hidden Dragon list in Cloud Flame territory. I advise you to surrender quickly. Otherwise, if I attack, the consequences will be unimaginable." Qi Xiaofeng's face gradually darkened as Tianyang ignored him. After a moment of silence, he made his move without any warning. "You're just an ant fishing for fame. How dare you ignore me? I want to see what you're made of." Qi Xiaofeng shouted angrily. A terrifying heavenly great sage's true vitality was unleashed. It turned into a long saber, releasing an unparalleled sharpness, and slashed down on Tianyang's head. It was not the origin, but it showed signs of being close to the origin. He was able to be so arrogant because he had the ability. It was just that he got the wrong person. "Not bad." Tianyang nodded slightly and raised his hand. Seeing this, Qi Xiaofeng's face suddenly showed an arrogant smile. However, before he could ridicule Qi Xiaofeng bang, shards of light flew everywhere. The saber light he had condensed shattered with a loud bang. "What?" Qi Xiaofeng's face changed drastically. He looked at his shattered saber light in disbelief and growled, "How is this possible?" In the next moment, he channeled his true vitality and condensed another long saber. Holding in his hand, he slashed at Tianyang. The space rippled, and a neat crack was torn open. Perilous slash. Tianyang's movements did not change at all. He reached out his hand, grabbed the blade, and then squeezed it hard. Qi Xiaofeng's powerful long saber, which he had used all his strength to launch, was shattered into pieces just like the previous flying sabers. On the other hand, Tianyang's palm had only sustained a wound that was less than half a centimeter deep after enduring such a powerful attack. As the long saber was shattered, it healed quickly. When Qi Xiaofeng came to his senses, it had completely recovered. How is this possible? Seeing this, Qi Xiaofeng was completely terrified. No matter how strong Qi Xiaofeng was, it should not be like this. It was fine that Qi Xiaofeng blocked his attack so easily. However, Qi Xiaofeng crushed his saber without using any true vitality. That was a saber made of true vitality, not a trash precious weapon used to fool kids on the roadside. Moreover, his perilous slash released the strongest power and caused the most damage, but it was just a scratch. There was a crack in it? How could this be a liar fishing for fame and reputation? Even if Qi Xiaofeng was a half-saint emperor, a saint emperor, or someone in the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon list in Cloud Fire territory, he would believe it. Only heaven-grade great saints under 200 years old were qualified to enter the Hidden Dragon list. However, saint emperors who were 200 years old were extremely rare. Previously, Tianyang had extorted Tu Yunhua Dao querying qualifications before releasing Zhang Ming and Ling Fei. Although they were only slightly stronger than saint emperors who had just entered the saint emperor realm, they were still more than 500 years old. Saint emperors were all in the top 100 or even the top 80. Qi Xiaofeng was ranked 497th on the Hidden Dragon list, someone who could be kicked out of the list at any time. How could he have offended someone who might be in the top 100 of the list? Thinking of this, Qi Xiaofeng trembled and almost lost control of his bladder. "You just said that the emperor came to see me? Is the emperor of the divine realm so free that he knows about this immediately?" Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He didn't care about Qi Xiaofeng's flustered and terrified expression. Qi Xiaofeng's heart skipped a beat, as if he had seen a ghost. How did Yang Tian know? However, since Tianyang had already pointed it out, Qi Xiaofeng had no choice but to tell the truth. "Actually, His Majesty didn't come see you. His Majesty has been cultivating in recent years. Although he's not in seclusion, ordinary things can't reach His Majesty's ears." Qi Xiaofeng said, but he still sighed in his heart. Killing the main branch of the Wang family and forcing the messenger of the Great Sun sect to retreat, these two things were not trivial at all. "I'm here on the orders of the second prince to invite Your Excellency," Fang Jingji said. Qi Xiaofeng's voice was obviously weak. His previous performance was not worthy of the word invite. I see. Tianyang nodded slightly. Then, Chapter 1504. Let him see me, Tianyang said indifferently. Qi Xiaofeng's face was filled with disbelief when he heard that. Let the second prince see him? What are you talking about? Qi Xiaofeng exclaimed as if he had heard the most unbelievable news in the world. You want the second prince to come from the imperial city to see you? Qi Xiaofeng exclaimed. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. You're asking for help, but you don't even have the sincerity to meet him. If that's the case, please leave, Tianyang said calmly. The so-called second prince of the Xuanhua dynasty did not attract his attention at all. In fact, he did not even bother to pay attention to him. A member of the imperial family who was directly involved in the battle for the throne wanted to recruit experts. It was obvious what his intention was. Heavenly Son couldn't be bothered to participate in this kind of scheming for an illusory position. Heavenly Son couldn't be bothered to participate. Tianyang had caused a lot of trouble in the Heaven Continent because of Princess Ling Ling. If not for Yang Qingwan, Tianyang would have kicked him out. The second prince is the one with the most advantage in this competition for the throne. Are you sure you don't want to consider it? Qi Xiaofeng's expression changed slightly when he heard that. Although the first prince is the eldest son of the imperial family, he's already 300 to 400 years old, and he's only a half-saint emperor. Although the second prince is only a little over 100 years old, he's already in the top 400 of the Hidden Dragon roll. He's much stronger than the first prince in all aspects. If you join, the second prince will definitely get the throne. By then, you'll also... the throne? I don't want it even if you give it to me. Qi Xiaofeng was stunned when he heard that. Then, his expression changed. That was true. Although the second prince was much stronger than him and the first prince, he was only in the top 300 of the Hidden Dragon roll. Although he was strong enough in the entire Cloudfire territory, he was not outstanding. Although he did not know the identity of the person in front of him, he definitely had the strength to fight for the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon roll. The second prince wanted to recruit Tianyang. It was like an ant asking a dragon to help fight for an ant's nest. So, Yang Qingwan, see him out, Tianyang said calmly. Hearing this, Yang Qingwan nodded and walked Qi Xiaofeng out. Tianyang's meaning was clear. The so-called Xuanhua dynasty was not in Tianyang's eyes at all. Tianyang's ambition does not lie here. In fact, his ambition was not even in the Cloudfire territory. Naturally, such a mighty eagle would not be interested in a small piece of the Xuanhua dynasty. After Qi Xiaofeng was sent away by Yang Qingwan looked at Tianyang, not daring to look him in the eye. Since even the Enigma Fire dynasty is not worthy of your attention, then where are you going? Yang Qingwan had a feeling that Qingyuan City was just a small post house in Tianyang. He would not stay in the relay station for too long. Let's talk about it after Yunhua's path-seeking. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up. Interesting. South of the Cloudfire territory. Different from ordinary big forces, as the strongest overlord of the Cloudfire territory, the Great Sun Sect was not located in the center of the Cloudfire territory. Instead, it was located in the extreme south of the Cloudfire territory. The Great Sun Sect was divided into two sects, the inner and outer. The outer sect had 7 outer sects, distributed in the 7 corners of the Cloudfire territory, except for the south. The inner sect was a world of its own, located in the southern part of the Cloudfire territory. In the small world of the inner sect of the Great Sun Sect, countless floating mountains occupied most of the space. A huge sun hung high in the sky of the small world. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth here was much stronger than that of Qingyuan City and the cultivation treasures that Tianyang used to recover his true yuan. It was said that the huge sun was a star's origin power that was snatched away by the sectmaster of the Great Sun Sect, who could be considered an extremely strong expert in the godly realm. After being refined by the Great Sun Sect's vast sun technique, it hung above the small world of the Great Sun Sect. It burned for thousands of years and still did not extinguish, in one of the countless floating mountains. So, you really did as Yang Tian said? You obediently gave away the 2 spots for the Cloudfire Path Forum that you had? A voice filled with endless anger rang out in the mountain. I'm sorry, Senior Brother Lin. It's mainly because Yang Tian is too strong. He actually controls the space-time origin power. Even Ling Fei's space-time origin power was firmly suppressed by that person. He even used a strange flame to leave a flame seed in our bodies. If we didn't do as he said, we would die. Zhang Ming trembled. Before leaving, they had tried to use the Great Sun Sect's cultivation method to forcibly refine the true flames of destruction that Tianyang had left in their bodies. As a result, the Heavenly Sun immediately sensed what they were doing and directly used the true flames of destruction to burn their innards. If they weren't Saint Emperors, they would have died along the way. Tianyang never showed mercy to his enemies. Is that so? Hearing this, the voice hesitated for a moment, then snorted coldly. Then, if that's the case, why didn't you come back immediately and look for me? With the strength of Lin Finghua, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for me to deal with a backup plan left behind by a guy who came out of nowhere? In the next moment, sharp metal blades appeared directly in Zhang Ming's flesh. At this moment, Zhang Ming's face had also become extremely distorted. However, he did not dare to say a word. Not every disciple of the Great Sun Sect could have a floating mountain in the inner sect. At the very least, they had comprehended a trace of the laws and were close to being demigods. This Senior Brother Lin Finghua was one of the best. It's a pity that you're still too stupid. Otherwise, if you had given those 2 spots to me, you would have at least gotten a half-saint weapon. Lin Fenghua's voice rang out. Hearing this, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei's faces twitched. Half-saint weapon? If you want to snatch it, just say so. What's the use of giving 2 half-saint emperors a half-saint weapon? However, facing Lin Finghua, they did not dare to express the hatred in their hearts. They could only vent all their anger on Tianyang. However, as 2 dogs, the 2 of you have done a pretty good job earlier. Now, show me the strange flame in your body. Lin Fenghua's voice rang out. In the next moment, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei felt a strong primordial spirit power sweep across their bodies. There really is. However, why do I feel like it's moving? Lin Fenghua snorted coldly. He released a power close to that of a demigod in an attempt to extinguish the flame. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Streaks of true destructive flames instantly surged out of Zhang Ming and Ling Fei's bodies and spewed out of their bodies through their pores. In an instant, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei were turned into flaming men. What? Seeing this, Lin Fenghua's expression changed drastically. He tried to suppress it, but it was useless. Then, the 2 of them turned into ashes. What was strange was that when the ashes fell down, they coincidentally formed a few words. Waiting for you. Then, a few more flames burned a few marks on the ground. Chapter 1505. The words ashes fall and flames burn. It was no different from giving Lin Fenghua a few hard slaps on his face. In an instant, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the entire floating mountain went berserk. Countless spiritual beasts howled at this moment, obviously greatly frightened. However, Lin Fenghua did not roar out in anger. Instead, he quickly recovered. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the floating mountain also gradually calmed down. I remember that the Xuanhua dynasty is in the east of the Cloudfire territory. Not only is this place hundreds of millions of kilometers away, but it is also separated by the barrier of the Great Sun Sect's intersect small world and my restrictive spells. I was also able to activate my trump card and kill Zhang Ming and Ling Fei. After that, he was able to control the ashes and flames so precisely. This person's strength is not to be underestimated. Lin Fenghua's expression was solemn. He stretched out his hand, and a strong wind blew over. It blew away all the ashes. However, the traces left by the 2 true flames of destruction could not be blown away. Yang Tian, is it? Sure. Cloud Fire Path seeking wait. Interesting. I didn't expect their leader to be a demigod. Tianyang's lips curled up, but his expression was solemn. If he was a demigod and was in the realm of a holy emperor, Tianyang was confident in dealing with him. If he was a demigod, Tianyang would have no choice but to use the sky-devouring secret skill, although there were no side effects. So, there are only 3 days until the Cloudfire Path Seeking. Looks like I can make it just in time. Tianyang flipped his wrist, and the Cloudfire Path Seeking token he got from Zhang Ming appeared in his hand. The badge was now activated, emitting a mystical aura. On it, a ball of flames burned on the clouds, as if it was really burning. It was very realistic. However, what Tianyang cared about was not the symbol of the Cloudfire territory, but the extremely familiar power that had just condensed in the depths of the token. Boundless power. It was impossible for Tianyang not to recognize him, since he had been in contact with Wu Zun until now. However, compared to Tianyang's vast expanse origin source and the vast expanse Saint Spirit's vast expanse energy, it was much purer and stronger. It would appear that the Cloudfire Path is the location of the Heavens Expanse Monarch's legacy treasure. At this moment, the vast expanse Holy Spirit's voice rang out. Although it sounded calm, it could not hide the excitement in its heart. If that's the case, let's go. 3 days is enough. That's great. The Great Sun Sect isn't the only one participating in the Cloudfire Dao competition. Everyone has a token, so I don't have to worry about the demigod or immortal realm experts from the Great Sun Sect. Although Tianyang wasn't afraid of demigods now, he still had to cower when facing an immortal state existence. Yuhan, let's go. Tianyang called out. Ling Yuhan, who was in a daze, immediately responded, coming. Then, he opened the door to the Vientiane Sky ruins with ease and walked in. Ling Yuhan was only an earthly great saint. Naturally, she couldn't keep up with Tianyang's speed of cultivating the vast expanse 9 changes to the peak of the 8th change. It was naturally best for her to stay in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Tianyang didn't hesitate and immediately soared into the sky. He used the vast expanse 9 changes with the help of the space-time origin. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the sky. On the way, Tianyang was also thinking. He had already entered the divine world. Although he was still in contact with the top experts in the Xintian Great World, his strength was enough to go unhindered. However, as time passed, many of his treasures became useless, or rather, they became less useful. For example, the true flames of destruction. Previously, Tianyang had directly released the true flames of destruction hidden in Zhang Ming and Ling Fei's bodies to kill them the moment Lin Fenghua attacked. Firstly, it was because the Cloudfire Path Seeking token had been activated and the two of them were of no use. Secondly, if Lin Fenghua attacked, Tianyang couldn't guarantee that the true flames of destruction wouldn't survive from hundreds of millions of miles away. After all, although the true flames of destruction had devoured many flames, it was only at the peak of the 8th Order Sacred Flame. Previously, when I killed Saint Emperor Lai Yin, his spiritual fire was at the peak of the 8th Order Sacred Flame. If I devoured Saint Emperor Lai Yan's spiritual fire, the true flames of destruction would probably reach the 9th Order Sacred Emperor level. Tianyang muttered to himself. In the last few days in the Xintian Great World, Tianyang had dealt with many enemies and obtained many treasures. Among them, Saint Emperor Lai Yin, who was one of the 3 giants of the Void Mountain when he was alive, was the most important. Saint Emperor Lai Yin was a sacred emperor who used the origin of flames to prove his Tao. He also occupied the resources of the entire Xintian Great World. The spiritual fire that he controlled was at the peak of the 8th Order Sacred Flame. In terms of destructive power, it was even stronger than Tianyang's true flames of destruction. However, after it fell into Tianyang's hands, Tianyang had forgotten about it for a while. He only recalled it now when the true flames of destruction almost couldn't hold on any longer. This trip to the vast heavens, Sacred Mountain, not only has to obtain the treasure left behind by the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord, but also try my best to find a spiritual fire to devour. Tianyang muttered to himself, then transmitted his voice to the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit. Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit, do you know what the Heavens Expanse Emperor Lord's treasure is? Tianyang asked. It would be best if it was a spiritual fire or a body refining technique. His nine-tempered dragon body had already been cultivated to perfection, and his immortal divine body had no room for improvement before he found a new technique. Only the diamond body refining saint technique could support Tianyang's physical strength, and he was still as strong as supreme Saint Ao Ju, almost as strong as a sacred emperor. I don't know. However, to Tianyang's disappointment, the heavens expanse saint spirit didn't know either. This part of memory was left behind by another heavens expanse saint palace, but it's incomplete. I don't know if it's because she was originally incomplete or because I merged with it. However, it's definitely not weak. Moreover, beside the Emperor Lord's treasure, thousands of opportunities will be born. Who knows, there might be the spiritual fire and body refining technique that you want. The heavens expanse, Saint Spirit said. Hearing that, Tianyang could only nod. He activated the heavens expanse 9 transformations, and while cultivating the expanse origin, he flew towards the vast heavens sacred mountain with extreme speed. Great Sun Sect, led by Lin Fenghua, the owner of the 5th floating mountain in the Great Sun Sect, dozens of people were transported to the vast heavens sacred mountain through the teleportation formation in the Great Sun Sect. In the space tunnel, Lin Fenghua's expression didn't change, but a cold look flashed in the depths of his eyes. He didn't erase the 2 words that were left in his mansion on the floating mountain. I wonder how strong that Yang Tian is. Lin Fenghua muttered to himself. It was calm, but filled with killing intent. He, Lin Fenghua, was ranked 21st on the Cloud Fire Territory's Hidden Dragon list. Huangmong Sect, Spirit Sword Pavilion, Jiang Clan, countless forces and countless geniuses moved, heading towards the Emperor Lord's sacred mountain in the Cloud Fire Territory. Just 4. Chapter 1506. Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain. Tianyang stood at the foot of Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain, looking up at the giant mountain that seemed to pierce the sky. He had seen many towering mountains, some of which were even tens of thousands of miles high. Even a heavenly ascension realm elite would find it difficult to climb them. However, this vast sky, sacred mountain, was nothing compared to the ones Tianyang had seen, whether it was Mount Meru in the Sumer Domain or the Void Mountain in the Xintian Great World. Tianyang's primordial spirit power was enough to sense everything within a 10,000-mile radius. However, at the foot of vast sky sacred mountain, not only was the range of his primordial spirit limited, but his primordial spirit power could also only reach tens of thousands of miles in a straight line. He could not even see the other side of vast sky sacred mountain. In fact, based on the angle, he could not even see half of it. If this giant mountain appeared in the Xintian Great World or the Tianshao Great World, it would probably be a smaller continent. Tianyang was shocked. At this moment, he realized that his experience in the Xintian Great World and the Tianshao Great World might be useful in the divine realm, but it was not completely accurate. Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain, could not be created in the Xintian Great World, even if all the Saint Emperors worked together. Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain did not exist here originally. However, when the Vast Sky Emperor's treasure fell here, the Emperor's power changed heaven and earth, forming this giant mountain. Perhaps the Great Sun Sect of the Cloudfire Territory or some other sect has not even explored half of it after so many years. The Vast Sky Sacred Spirit laughed softly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed. In other words, at least half of it was a treasure land that no one had explored. By the way, this Vast Sky Sacred Mountain, the entire mountain, is better than the place you found to recover your cultivation base. The Vast Sky Sacred Spirit laughed softly. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up, and he clenched his fists excitedly. If that was the case, then he would have to go through a lot. Someone's here. At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyebrows, sensing waves of space power being released in the distance. It was the space origin. It was much stronger than Ling Fei's space origin. The newcomer's speed was extremely fast. Although he had only just arrived, he arrived at the foot of Vast Sky Sacred Mountain in less than 10 seconds. I didn't expect that the Jiang clan wasn't the fastest. The leader of the group looked at Tianyang, who was already waiting there, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He silently scanned Tianyang with the power of his soul. Heaven Great Sage Peak. Sensing this level of weak Zhen Yuan, the leader lost interest and casually found a place to set up camp. One could not directly enter the vast sky, sacred mountain, just because they had the Cloud Fire Path seeking token. Or rather, their Cloud Fire Dao seeking tokens could only be used according to the weakening cycle of the vast firmament Divine Mountain Seal. There was still some time before the opening of the vast sky, sacred mountain. The Jiang clan, upon hearing that, Tianyang also glanced at these people. Without exception, all of them were Heaven Great Sage Peak. The strongest leader's strength had probably touched the barrier of the demigod realm. He was only one step away from that realm. As for their age, other than the strongest who was close to the demigod realm, which could not be seen, the rest were all below 500 years old. He also saw a few who were only over 100 years old, but had stepped into the Holy Emperor realm. It seems that the Great Sun sect does not dominate the Cloud Fire territory alone. Tianyang analyzed for a while, then smiled and looked away. Tianyang did not care about the opinion of the Jiang clan. Other than this visit to Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain, and the Cloud Fire Path seeking token, he most likely would not have the opportunity to interact with the forces of the Cloud Fire territory. On the contrary, through this observation, he learned a part of the Jiang clan's strength. Although it might not be very detailed, if they met on Vast Sky, Sacred Mountain, Tianyang would be more confident. What force are you from? At this moment, a young girl suddenly ran out from the Jiang clan and looked at Tianyang curiously. I recognize the geniuses of the major forces in the Cloud Fire territory and the top 500 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. Why haven't I seen you before? Did you come from another territory to participate in the Cloud Fire Path seeking token? The young girl approached Tianyang and asked curiously with her eyes wide open. Hearing this, Tianyang suddenly felt a headache. This kind of uninvited person was the most troublesome. Strange. I remembered the Hidden Dragon ranking of the neighboring territory. You're only a few decades old and already have such great strength. You should be in the Hidden Dragon ranking. The Heaven-Seeking Pavilion's intelligence network is very strong, the young girl said. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. Heaven-Seeking Pavilion? When he asked Zhang Ming and Ling Fei about the Hidden Dragon ranking, they did not mention the Heaven-Seeking Pavilion. It seemed that Zhang Ming and Ling Fei still had some reservations about him, the person who had brushed them off. However, they didn't expect to lose their lives not long after they escaped from Heavenly Sun City. Due to the fact that he had just seen the young girl from the Jiang clan, Tianyang kept a cautious attitude and did not immediately ask. Instead, the young girl kept chattering nonstop. I say, are you mute? Why didn't you reply to me after I asked you so many questions? Speaking of which, the energy in your body is very strange. I have never seen such a strange origin energy since I was young. Could it be that you're not practicing orthodox techniques? That's not right. It's not that I haven't seen demonic techniques, but I have never seen one that seems to have so many origin energy in your body. Hey, say something. At first, Tianyang could not be bothered to listen to what the young girl was chattering about. However, as he listened, Tianyang felt that something was wrong. The young girl's question seemed to be a little strange. What did you say? Jiang Xian, come back. Just as Tianyang was about to listen carefully, a cold shout suddenly rang out. The leader of the Jiang clan, who was close to the demigod realm, looked coldly at Tianyang and said, People from outside the territory, stay away from her. Hearing this, the young girl immediately pursed her lips and ran back to where the Jiang clan was. Tianyang's expression froze for a moment, then relaxed. Now was not the time for Tianyang and the Jiang clan to clash. She was just a young girl with a strange sensing ability. She was not worthy of his attention. After that, Tianyang stood where he was and waited for Hao Shao Sacred Mountain to open. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless air-piercing sounds rang out at this moment. Then, countless spatial cracks opened up. Among them, almost 30 people flew out from the largest one. The leader almost instantly locked onto Tianyang's location. Tianyang looked over and the corner of his mouth curled up. Although they had never met, he knew who this person was. Chapter 1507. Lin Fenghua. Tianyang's expression changed instantly. His lips curled into a provocative smile. Seeing this, Lin Fenghua's expression darkened. Then, he quickly recovered. In these 3 days, Lin Fenghua had not been idle. He had activated his intelligence network to investigate this person who dared to plant a death trap in the bodies of his underlings, Zhang Ming and Ling Fei, and even used their lives to leave behind those 4 words. Although Tianyang had only been in the God realm for less than 10 days, he had already made a name for himself in Qingyuan City and even the entire Xuanhua dynasty. The Great Sun Sect's intelligence network also obtained Tianyang's face immediately. Therefore, Lin Fenghua immediately locked onto Tianyang. Ha ha ha. Everyone, it's been a long time. I wonder how many of you have missed me. Fighting 10 parties? Just as Lin Fenghua was about to speak, a loud and wild voice came from the sky. In the next moment, a black dot rapidly expanded in the sky. Tianyang's attention was also attracted by this person who suddenly appeared. And the moment this person appeared, Yi Zichen's expression changed. The leader of the Jiang clan, Lin Fenghua of the Great Sun Sect, and a group of people who were not weak all had a slight change in their expressions. Fighting 10 parties? Why did this guy come out? The leader of the Jiang clan said through gritted teeth. In the next moment, the black dot enlarged into a human figure. Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, 5 states? Ha, old friends. Long time no see. The figure laughed wantonly. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua, the leader of the Jiang clan, and another peak holy emperor who was close to becoming a demigod all had ugly expressions. Fighting 10 parties. Why did you come out? The leader of the Jiang clan, Jiang Haoshuan, shouted, "Weren't you exiled to the Nether Spring underworld by the Zhan clan's patriarch? Why are you back?" Hearing that, Lin Fenghua nodded with a grave look on his face. Compared to Tianyang, his expression was much more solemn. Banished? Hearing this, the figure's eyes widened. I'm going to the Nether Spring underworld to train. How can it be called banishment? My father saw that I was too weak back then, so he sent me to the Nether Spring underworld to train. Let me tell you, the barbecued meat of the underworld's soul corpse dogs is very fragrant. The Nether Spring underworld isn't anything special, but the demon beasts there are very delicious. Let me tell you, they are really delicious. Fighting 10 parties shouted. Hearing this, everyone at the foot of vast sky, sacred mountain, was speechless. The Nether Spring underworld. Who doesn't know that damn place? The most precious place in the Cloud Fire territory was undoubtedly vast sky, sacred mountain. Similarly, the most terrifying place in the Cloud Fire territory was the Nether Spring underworld. Jiang Haoshuan said lightly. Previously, the fighting 10 parties directly shattered the attacks of the 3 prodigies with 1 spear. It was not because the fighting 10 parties' absolute strength surpassed the sum of the 3 prodigies. Most of it was because of this purple lightning divine spear. One of the few incomplete divine weapons of the Zhan family. Now it was repaired. This time, the Cloud Fire Dao competition is extraordinary. Of course, the fighting 10 parties, came back to reap some benefits. Hearing this, the fighting 10 parties smiled and returned to his previous appearance. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan's expressions also changed. The Zhan family was quite mysterious. Although they were not weak, they did not expand their influence and had been quietly living in seclusion in a small dynasty. However, because of the Zhan family's powerful strength, the Great Sun Sect and other overlords of the Cloud Fire territory had to give the Zhan family face and leave a few spots for them. One of the reasons was that the Zhan family had connections with the mysterious heaven-seeking pavilion. In fact, the Zhan family's clansmen were also proficient in this field. Coming from a Zhan family's Zhan Shifang's mouth, the significance was not ordinary. However, I haven't seen you for more than 10 years, but you haven't changed much. The fighting 10 parties laughed and then walked to where the Jiang clan was. Don't you think so, little sister Jiang Xian? The fighting 10 parties came in front of the girl from the Jiang clan and smiled. Fighting 10 parties, stay away from Jiang Xian. Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan said coldly. The Fighting 10 parties did not care at all and continued to talk to Jiang Xian with a smile. Jiang Xian blinked her big eyes a few times, then revealed a devilish smile and pointed at a person. Not necessarily. For example, the one over there, super powerful, Jiang Xian said loudly. Chapter 1508. Hearing this, the Fighting 10 parties were stunned. They followed Jiang Xian's gaze and looked at Tianyang. Tianyang's expression also changed slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Was this girl from the Jiang clan really not afraid of being beaten up? That's strange. Sister Jiang Xian actually said that there was someone very powerful at the Cloud Fire Dao Forum this time. The Fighting 10 parties chuckled, then looked at Tianyang with shining eyes. Also, I haven't seen this person before. I don't know where this person came from. Maybe I can get to know you and invite you to the Great Sun sect one day. As he spoke, the Fighting 10 parties wanted to pat Tianyang's shoulder. However, Tianyang moved silently and dodged the pat. My background is ordinary. I'm sure this half-step demigod wouldn't know, so there's no value in talking about it. Tianyang smiled faintly. Although he was polite, he still kept people at arm's length. According to Tianyang's plan, when the vast sky, godly mountain opened, he would immediately go in and take the treasure left behind by the vast sky emperor and refine it on the spot. He might even let the true destruction flames devour the spiritual fire of the Saint Emperor Lai Yin. Tianyang was too lazy to provoke the forces in the Cloud Fire territory. Only Jiang Xian from the Jiang clan was a little interesting. However, Tianyang didn't care too much about her. Oh, brother, you're not interesting. Hearing this, the Fighting 10 parties suddenly dragged out his tone and said, back then, even Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan, who didn't like me at first sight, told me about their backgrounds. Now, they're welcoming me so warmly. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan from the Jiang clan and Lin Fenghua from the Great Sun sect, who didn't intend to pay attention to the Fighting 10 parties, looked extremely upset. Warmly welcome? Without your purple lightning divine spear, you would be lying on the ground right now. However, Jiang Haoshuan and the others were too lazy to clash with the Fighting 10 parties at this moment. From their point of view, rather than provoking trouble when Vast Sky Divine Mountain was about to open, it was better to start the battle after encountering the opportunity. That way, if they won, they would at least get the spoils of war. Even if they won, other hostile forces would seize the opportunity. They might even lose their treasures in the Vast Sky Divine Mountain. Previously, the Fighting 10 parties' joint attack was more than enough. So, brother, at least give me a name? The Fighting 10 parties casually swung the purple lightning godly spear in his hand and laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was calm as he said indifferently, Yang Tian. Yang Tian, is it? I've seen little sister Jiang Xian so many times, but I've never seen her praise anyone. Today, you were praised. I'm not convinced. The Fighting 10 parties smiled slightly and said, so, when we meet at Vast Sky Divine Mountain, I'd like to have a try with you. I'm looking forward to it. Tianyang's expression didn't change at all as he said. Half-step demigod, compared to Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, and the 5 prefectures, he was much stronger. Coupled with the divine artifact level purple lightning godly spear, the threat was indeed huge. However, Tianyang didn't mean to be afraid. If it really didn't work, he would use all 7 sources and activate the sky-devouring secret technique. Whoever came would have to kneel. Big brother, just fight once. Xian is curious. Seeing that the Fighting 10 parties didn't intend to fight immediately, Jiang Xian suddenly pursed her lips and said, Xian really wants to know Big Brother's strength. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change at all. Originally, as a passerby hidden in the crowd, no one paid attention to him except for Lin Fenghua or the Giant Sun sect. However, with just a few words from Jiang Xian, even Lin Fenghua's attention was attracted by the Fighting 10 parties. Sensing the curious, disdainful, and interested gazes from around him, Tianyang understood. Even if he wanted to keep a low profile, it was impossible. Tianyang didn't have a good impression of this girl who looked innocent and cute, but was actually full of evil tricks. Yang Tian, right? Although Jiang Xian thinks you are very strong, I don't think you are qualified to get close to Jiang Xian. So, even if you are in vast sky divine mountain, I advise you to stay away from her. Jiang Haoshuan frowned and snorted coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. An imperceptible light flashed in his eyes. If Jiang Haoshuan only said this once or twice, Tianyang might have ignored it. However, Jiang Haoshuan was so rude to Tianyang and the Fighting Ten parties. Apart from this person being a pervert, there was only one possibility. Jiang Xian was definitely not ordinary. Connecting this to her powerful perception ability, Tianyang was extremely curious. Could it be that Jiang Xian had some special constitution that allowed her to have a powerful perception ability? Tianyang knew a lot of similar constitutions, but unfortunately, most of the knowledge he accumulated was useless in the realm of the gods. If he knew what kind of constitution Jiang Xian had, perhaps it would be much easier to deal with her. In Tianyang's heart, the Jiang clan had almost become an imaginary enemy. Rumble. At this moment, just as Lin Fenghua was about to say something to Tianyang, a loud sound suddenly rang out. Everyone's expression changed slightly, and a fanatical light flashed in their eyes. They immediately took out their Cloud Fire Path tokens. In the next moment, a mysterious light burst out. The Cloud Fire Path tokens in everyone's hands were instantly shattered. The vast power within suddenly rushed out and merged with the Shengguang that was shot out from the peak of vast sky, sacred mountain. The token is broken. The sacred mountain is open. Someone roared. They all knew that the Cloud Fire Path tokens were really useful, and not some bullsh asterisk T symbol of the Cloud Fire territory. Instead, it was the vast sky divine power that was sealed in the token of Cloud Fire Path by the sects and forces of the great gods of Cloud Fire territory that had taken action and obtained a trace of the power of vast sky, godly mountain. The so-called Cloud Fire Path was a question. It was the Tao of vast sky, sacred mountain. Tianyang, don't take out the token. You have condensed the vast sky origin, so you don't need to break the token. The vast energy within this Cloud Fire Path seeking token comes from the vast energy of 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 the vast energy. It is much stronger than the vast energy of the both of us. The vast sky Holy Spirit's voice rang out. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Just as his token was about to shatter, he used the space-time origin to seal it, and threw out a vast power. This vast power looked exactly the same as the other Cloud Fire Path tokens that had shattered and flew out. It also successfully merged with the token. Tianyang suddenly felt that there was a strange connection between him and vast sky, sacred mountain. Ding! A clear and crisp sound rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. In the next moment, countless people holding the tokens disappeared from vast sky, sacred mountain, and were transported to the interior of vast sky, sacred mountain. P.S. Sorry, I forgot to update this chapter regularly. Chapter 1509. Beams of powerful and blazing light were released in the area. Even though Tianyang had mastered the vast expanse power, in front of the vast expanse Emperor Lord's powerful energy, he still lost control of his position temporarily. However, compared to the others, Tianyang was stronger. The others were surrounded by the vast expanse Emperor Lord's vast expanse power and could only be blinded. However, Tianyang was able to determine his position. This vast expanse, sacred mountain, is a little strange. It seems like there's no way to send you directly into the depths of the vast expanse, sacred mountain, to get the treasures. So, you can stay outside for a while, the vast expanse, sacred spirit said, as if it had encountered a situation. Hearing that, Tianyang's eyes flickered, but he did not say anything. The vast expanse Emperor Lord was a powerful existence in the godly state. Even though the vast expanse sacred spirit had devoured the vast expanse sacred palace and recovered most of its memories, it still could not remember how powerful the vast expanse Emperor Lord was. For such an existence, the vast expanse sacred spirit was not in its complete form. so it could not do whatever it wanted for the time being. However, I can send you to a better place. As for what happens next, it's up to you. After the vast expanse sacred spirit said one last time, it went completely silent. It focused on dealing with the vast expanse Emperor Lord Seal. As for Tianyang, he was one step ahead of it and came to the inner part of the vast expanse sacred mountain. Tianyang sensed the strong and rich vast expanse power around him and raised his eyebrows. It seemed like the vast expanse, sacred mountain's vast expanse power was not as strong as he had imagined. However, Tianyang was not surprised. The vast expanse, sacred mountain was so huge that it was comparable to a realm. This was the outermost area, so it was normal that the vast expanse power was not as strong as he had imagined. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the vast expanse, sacred mountain was strong. Tianyang only took a casual breath, and he could feel that his limbs and bones were being nourished by the pure and rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was as if his entire body had been cleansed of all impurities. However, before Tianyang could take a closer look at his surroundings, something flashed beside him. In the next moment, a bright light flashed, and a figure appeared 100 feet away from Tianyang. "Someone's here." Seeing someone, the figure who had just appeared was stunned. Didn't they say that no one else would appear within a radius of 5 miles around the vast sky, sacred mountain? However, it doesn't matter. This vast sky, sacred mountain, is so mysterious. Although the Great Sun sect, the Jiang clan, and the other forces are strong, they won't be able to understand it. As he spoke, a cold smile appeared on that person's face. Then, the first drop of blood of vast sky, godly mountain, will be created by me, Lian. The next moment, the figure let out a low roar and charged towards Tianyang. Crazy. Seeing this, Tianyang immediately frowned. Nothing had happened yet, and this guy was already courting death. Earth explosion. Lian roared and slammed his hands on the ground. Instantly, the ground within a 1-mile radius exploded. Waves of powerful earth energy charged towards Tianyang. Dying. Lian's face was ferocious. Taking advantage of the earth energy attacking Tianyang, his figure flashed, and a mysterious seal appeared in his hands. In a flash, he appeared behind Tianyang and aimed a seal at Tianyang. "Get lost." Tianyang frowned and snorted coldly. Boom! The surging power of the earth and the mysterious power of the seal were instantly shattered by this sound wave. The double impact acted on Lian. Lian suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Tianyang in disbelief. How can this be? He was ranked 250th on the Hidden Dragon list in the Cloud Fire territory. He was almost 170 years old, and he was a peerless genius who had reached the level of a half-holy emperor. He had never seen this person before. He was definitely not someone on the Hidden Dragon list. How could he be so powerful? The word "get lost" had completely destroyed his 2 attacks that had almost never missed. Damn it, I'm gonna run. In less than a second, Lian roared in a low voice. His figure flashed, and a talisman appeared in his hand. On it, there was a silver light of space flashing. Still want to run? Seeing this, Tianyang casually stretched out his hand. The space-time origin fluctuated slightly and disrupted the talisman that had just been activated. At the same time, Tianyang's hand passed through a space-time gate. Then, it seemed to be broken into 2. It grabbed Lian's neck. WH. Seeing this, Lian's pupils contracted, and he looked at the hand that appeared on his neck in disbelief. The main body of the hand was 100 meters away from him. However, because of the 2 strange space-time gates, it grabbed him from 100 meters away. This was the application of the space-time origin. It was too powerful. Bang! In the next moment, Tianyang retracted his hand. Lian was also pulled back. His face hit the air and even created a series of sonic booms. Tianyang did not kill him immediately because Tianyang still had many things to ask him. Lian could not suppress the double backlash. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his aura weakened. It had only been a few dozen seconds since he had been transported to the vast sky, godly mountain, and attacked. In a few dozen seconds, the son-in-law of the Sima family in Yonghua country half-holy Emperor Li Yin, ranked 250th on the Hidden Dragon list, was caught by a nobody on the Hidden Dragon list. "Who are you?" Li Yin roared in a low voice and stared at Tianyang. There were not many holy emperors who could take care of him so quickly. Although there were countless holy emperors in the Cloud Fire territory, there were not many holy emperors who were as young as him. However, Li Yin did not have any impression of him. "It doesn't matter who I am." Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. Streaks of sharp air gushed out of his palm. "However, if you don't give me a good explanation, your life is not important either." 3 minutes later, Tianyang successfully obtained specific information about the vast sky, godly mountain, from Li Yin. Previously, when he asked Zhang Ming and Ling Fei of the Great Sun Sect, Tianyang did not know much about them, so he did not ask too much. After entering, he realized that he lacked information. Fortunately, a head and the source of the information were sent over. The vast sky, godly mountain, was somewhat different from what Tianyang had imagined. First of all, the vast sky, godly mountain, was not a secret realm filled with treasures. Instead, it was a trial ground with 9 layers of seals that went up layer by layer. In the trial grounds, in addition to killing for treasures, Li Yin had also killed in order to eliminate his opponents. In the vast sky, godly mountain, everyone was an opponent. Everyone had a way to die. It was as if it was a wrestling ring. The 9 layers of seals sealed the opportunities of the vast sky, godly mountain. At the same time, it also isolated the inside and outside of the vast sky, godly mountain. Therefore, the 9 layers of seals were also called. Chapter 15:10. Vast Sky, Divine Mountain, 9 Heavenly Seals. Tianyang was now in the first seal of the 9 heavenly seals. Something's not right. The Heavenly Emperor only left behind one treasure. Why are there so many things here? Tianyang frowned. Through the vast sky Saint Spirit, Tianyang knew much more than the people of Cloud Fire territory who only treated vast sky, divine mountain, as a training ground and treasure secret realm. According to the vast sky Saint Spirit's memory, the Heavenly Emperor only left behind a few treasures here and set up a few seals before leaving. The seals were only targeted at the treasures. After all, vast sky, divine mountain, did not exist when the Heavenly Emperor left behind the treasures. Naturally, it could not be the 9 heavenly seals. A reasonable guess was that the seals were leaked and the Emperor's power flowed out, changing the heavens and earth and forming this secret realm. However, even if it was a secret realm, how could the 9 heavenly seals be created? It was obviously man-made. Also, there were the rules of this bloody arena. Is killing each other a rule of vast sky divine mountain? Or do you think so? Tianyang asked with a frown. If it was the latter, it might not be a big deal. Hearing that, Li Yin was stunned. Of course, it's the rules of vast sky divine mountain. The rules here are different from Cloud Fire territory. Only by following the rules of vast sky divine mountain can one gain enough benefits. Killing each other, the winner takes all. Only then can one break through the first seal and enter the next seal to obtain countless opportunities. However, even the godly state almighties who explored vast sky, divine mountain, only went as deep as the 8 heavenly seals. The 9 heavenly seals are too powerful. Even the top almighties of Great Sun Sect, Jiang Clan, and 5 Spirit Saint Hall can't enter. Li Yin said. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly. As far as he knew, even for the Great Sun Sect that dominated the entire Cloud Fire territory, the strongest expert was only an ordinary expert in the God realm, or perhaps slightly above average. Although the Heavens Expanse Saint Spirit did not know the exact strength of the Heavens Expanse Emperor, he was definitely at the peak of the godly state. Did they really think that they could enter the Heavens Expanse Emperor's restrictions with just a few mid-grade celestials? Don't even think about it. So that's all you know. Tianyang rubbed his chin and said. Hearing this, Li Yin was taken aback. An imperceptible light flashed in his eyes as he said, There's one more, but it hasn't been confirmed, so it's just a guess. It's just that it's a guess from the Sima family of the Yonghua nation. I don't think it's wrong. The Grand Tutor isn't an immortal, but he's stronger than a demigod. His guess is most likely correct. Li Yin said. Hearing this, Tianyang's interest was piqued. Speak. Seeing this, Li Yin smiled. That is, you are an idiot. A seal imbued with a destructive aura slammed into Tianyang's chest. Boom, 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 boom. Streaks of terrifying and violent energy slammed into Tianyang's body. Streaks of pitch-black lightning shot out in all directions. Aha! You think you're strong just because you can easily suppress me? You don't know that the cloud fire territory strength is not everything. I, Li Yin, am the son-in-law of the Sima family and the disciple of the grand tutor of the Yonghua nation. How can I be suppressed by a savage who came out of nowhere? Seeing the destructive energy bombarding Tianyang, Li Yin laughed maniacally. He, Li Yin, was the fifth-ranked genius in the Yonghua nation, one of the strongest countries in the cloud fire territory. He should have created endless glory in the cloud fire path for him. How could he die in the hands of an ignorant savage? Because of a few words, he let his guard down. He was indeed an idiot. It's a little itchy. At this moment, a voice sounded. Li Yin's unbridled laughter suddenly froze. Then, a flame suddenly rose up. It was not the true destructive flames, but the undying divine flame. Although Tianyang's body was still made of flesh and blood, the undying divine flame had been imprinted in all his cells. As long as he was attacked, the undying divine flame would defend him internally. If the attack was stronger, a ball of undying divine flame would ignite. With the undying divine flame's defense, even a holy emperor or Tianyang would not be able to injure him much, let alone a full-powered attack from a half-holy emperor. How is this possible? This is the black fire lotus eel that the grand tutor, my master, gave me. It can even kill a holy emperor. Li Yin's body trembled as he looked at the person in front of him in disbelief. Hearing this, Tianyang raised an eyebrow. What black fire lotus seal? Then Tianyang retracted the undying divine flame and saw the lotus amidst the destructive flames. It was the spiritual fire. However, it was only a small part of the spiritual fire, and it was consumable. Once it was used up, it would be gone. There was no value in devouring it. Tianyang sighed when he realized this. If it was a spiritual fire, the true flames of annihilation would be an extra meal right now. As for Li Yin, since he already knew what he knew, there was no point in keeping him. Wait! Seeing the faint killing intent in Tianyang's eyes, Li Yin panicked and shouted, Actually, my master really has a guess. Not interested. Tianyang stretched out his hand, and the true destructive flames burned. You dare to kill me? When the scorching flames touched Li Yin, a piece of Li Yan's skin instantly died. Li Yan's eyes widened as he said savagely, How dare you kill me? I'm the fifth genius of the Yonghua nation in the Cloud Fire territory, the 250th on the Hidden Dragon ranking, the disciple of the Yonghua nation's national preceptor, and the son-in-law of the Sima family. How dare you kill me? Li Yin roared angrily. Tianyang pointed his finger indifferently. In an instant, Li Yin's entire body was ignited by Tianyang. No! In an instant, Li Yin's body turned into ashes. Li Yin's pupils constricted as he roared angrily. The true destructive flames also began to burn Li Yin's primordial spirit. Wait, the Yonghua nation and the Sima family will avenge me. Li Yin roared, and in the next moment, he actually self-destructed his primordial spirit. Boom! There was a deafening explosion. Tianyang looked at the primordial spirit fireworks in the air with a calm expression. He knew that Li Yin had already sent a message to the entire vast sky, sacred mountain. However, would Tianyang care? With a wave of his hand, Li Yin's interspatial storage bag was summoned by Tianyang. After a casual glance, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. I don't have the spiritual fire, but it's not bad to have this. A demonic flame lotus bloomed in it. Chapter 15:11. The Extreme Flame Heart Lotus. Tianyang hadn't expected that Li Yin's space bag would contain such a powerful treasure. Tianyang didn't have any records of the Extreme Flame Heart Lotus in his myriad pill cannon. However, because he'd stayed in the Dragon Demons, the Void Mountain, and other places for a long time, he'd obtained a lot of information about the God Realm. Tianyang also had some understanding of this treasure from the God Realm. The extreme flame heart lotus was born in an extremely hot place. It wasn't a plant, but it took the shape of a lotus. Extreme flame referred to the place where the extreme flame heart lotus was born and its own characteristics. The heart lotus was one of the great abilities of the extreme flame heart lotus. Devouring and refining the extreme flame heart lotus could not only strengthen one's spirit fire, but also use the power of the extreme flame heart lotus to refine one's primordial spirit and forge one's spirit. On the path of martial arts, one's spirit underwent 3 transformations. The first was at birth, when one's chaotic and scattered consciousness turned into a spirit. It would remain a spirit all the way to the Wuzun realm. The only difference was the strength of the spirit. The second was at the instant when one entered the Wuzun realm from the heavenly ascension realm. When one's primordial spirit entered the Wuzun realm, one's spirit would become a primordial spirit. A primordial spirit was much more solid and powerful than an ordinary spirit. Ordinary spirits could only control a handful of offensive techniques, such as charging, assassinating, and suppressing. A primordial spirit had the same strong plasticity as primordial spirit. For example, Tianyang's godly piercing blade, the ice spirit secret technique, and various other primordial spirit secret techniques. From a certain perspective, once one entered the Wuzun realm, the primordial spirit seemed to have the upper hand in terms of primordial spirit and primordial spirit. The third transformation was to enter the God realm from the Holy Emperor realm, transcend mortality, and enter the God realm. The primordial spirit would shed its mortal primordial spirit and transform into a primordial spirit that was essentially a combination of the God realm. Similarly, when one entered the God realm, primordial spirit would transform into divine power. Primordial spirit and primordial spirit were worlds apart. However, the extreme flame lotus in Tianyang's possession had the effect of increasing the success rate of transforming one's soul into a soul. Even if he failed, it would be enough to strengthen his essence soul. From this, one could see how powerful the extreme flame heart lotus was. However, the rest are just a bunch of trash. There isn't even a divine artifact that can be used. Tianyang looked around and sighed. Apart from the extreme flame heart lotus, the rest were not even as good as the Saint Emperor Lai Yin that Tianyang had killed. That made sense. Besides the fact that he was in the divine world, Li Yin was only a half-holy emperor. It was expected that he would be weaker than a holy emperor. Being able to obtain the extreme flame heart lotus was already an unexpected surprise. Releasing the power of his soul, Tianyang used the power of his soul to scan everything within 100 kilometers of him to take out the heart lotus. There was no time like the present. Danger lurked in every corner of the vast sky divine mountain. Not only was there Saint Emperor Lai Yan's rank 8 sacred flame, there was also the extreme flame heart lotus that he had just obtained from Li Yin. In addition, he was still in the first seal of the 9 heavenly seals of the vast sky divine mountain. The area was enormous, and there was not a single person within 100 kilometers of him. It could be said that this was the best opportunity to refine the extreme flame heart lotus and activate the 10,000 divine flames to increase the power of his true flames of destruction. Boom! Tianyang made a prompt decision. He immediately activated his primordial spirit and blasted a huge hole in the ground. Then, his primordial spirit dispersed and turned into countless primordial spirit chains. Countless primordial spirit lines connected together to form a mysterious pattern. Formation in the void. Tianyang had been dead for 3 years, but because of his inextinguishable will, he was still alive in the immortal prince's immortal flame. However, he was only left with a trace of consciousness to preserve his origin. He could not do anything else. Therefore, in these 3 years, Tianyang did not have a primordial spirit, or primordial spirit. He could only study alchemy and formations continuously. Therefore, Tianyang had absorbed and digested everything he knew about alchemy and formations. He had successfully formed the two great origins. Right now, Heavenly Sun was using the array Tao origin source. Countless runes and patterns intersected. Unparalleled power gathered crazily. Soon, one after another, complex formations were formed. The formations had only been formed and had not been completely set up. However, waves of powerful energy fluctuations had been successfully released. Streams of defensive, offensive, and hidden forces were unleashed. Withdraw, Tianyang shouted. The released waves of energy were withdrawn by Tianyang. However, Tianyang stood in the middle of the countless formations. He was still as dazzling as a god. Release. With a wave of his hand, the countless formations released a dazzling light. Layers of formations covered an area of 100 miles. Even if a heavenly emperor or even a half-god passed by, they would definitely not discover the existence of so many formations here if they did not pay attention. That was because Tianyang had also injected a trace of chaotic aura outside of the formation origins. With so many formations, even if a heavenly emperor 10 times stronger than Zhang Mingling and Ling Fei were here, they would be wiped out in an instant without being affected at all. As long as it's not Lin Fenghua, the Fighting 10 parties, or Zhang Haoshuan who are close to half-gods or half-step half-gods. This is the safest place. Tianyang smiled and sat cross-legged on the ground. The true flames of destruction began to burn. In an instant, the extreme flame heart lotus was devoured and burned to ashes. This was the best way to use the extreme flame heart lotus. It was directly integrated into the spirit fire. If it was consumed, who knew how much essence would be lost? The first second was still very calm. The second, boom! Blazing and dazzling flames almost illuminated the entire sky. The rolling power of the flames rushed into the true flames of destruction like a raging torrent. At this moment, even the true flames of destruction, which had merged with several powerful spirit fires and had reached the peak of the level 8 sacred flames, almost exploded its origins. If the true flames of destruction's origins were to explode, then all of Tianyang's efforts over the years would go down the drain. 10,000 godly flames activate. A sharp glint flashed across Tianyang's eyes. With a cold snort, waves of unparalleled, refining power were released. As for the true flames of destruction, after withstanding the first wave of the extreme flame torrent, it also withstood the second wave. As the 10,000 godly flames activated, it was also safe in the torrent. Then it devoured wildly. Now is the time. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes focused, and he threw his right hand. A ball of flame was thrown out by Tianyang. In an instant, it sank into the true flames of destruction's origins. At the same time, the origins of chaos erupted rapidly, releasing waves of pure chaos chi into the true flames of destruction. The divine wilderness heavenly spirit art was activated, and the 10,000 godly flames was completely activated. The true flames of destruction became stronger and stronger. Stepping into level 9 was only a matter of time. And at this moment, Tianyang's eyes suddenly became unfocused. Chapter 15:12. Extreme Flame Heart Lotus, the Power of the Heart. The most precious thing about the Extreme Flame Heart Lotus was not the immense power of extreme flame contained within, but the powerful power of the heart hidden behind the power of extreme flame. If he only wanted the power of extreme flame, Tianyang would not have been so impatient to set up the formation and prepare to devour the extreme flame heart lotus. After all, although the true flames of destruction were still very powerful after reaching level 9, it would not increase Tianyang's combat strength by much. However, with the addition of the power of the heart, it was completely different. If he succeeded in condensing his spirit, Tianyang could kill everyone on Vast Sky, Divine Mountain, with a single glance. Of course, the possibility of this happening was less than 1 in 10,000. Tianyang did not hope for it, but it was necessary to greatly strengthen the power of the primordial spirit. Now that the true flames of destruction can use the divine flames of 10,000 elephant to devour the power of extreme flame of the extreme flame heart lotus and the spiritual fire of the Saint Emperor Lai Yin, there's no need for me anymore. Therefore, I can devour the tremendous power of the heart in the extreme flame heart lotus now. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled. In the next moment, he released his primordial spirit and madly devoured the power of the extreme flame heart lotus. Boom! A loud noise exploded in Tianyang's soul sea. Tianyang only felt that his primordial spirit was about to be burned and blown apart. His entire person sank into a dazed state of chaos. However, Tianyang was not to be trifled with. Since he had decided to devour, he naturally had the confidence. Streaks of undying divine flames burned in his soul sea, directly devouring half of the torrent of heart that had invaded Tianyang's soul sea. At the same time, Tianyang formed a seal with both hands, and the power of his primordial spirit rippled. Secret skill of ice spirits. However, this secret skill of ice spirits was not released against the extreme flame heart lotus, but against Tianyang himself. Tianyang's primordial spirit was directly frozen by streaks of ice spirits, and even his actions of connecting down were much slower. However, the second wave of torrent of heart from the extreme flame heart lotus came crashing down once again. The secret skill of ice spirits shattered, but the torrent of heart lotus was also greatly depleted and absorbed by Tianyang's primordial spirit. Condense, impact, collision, shatter, absorb. In just a few short seconds, these 5 steps were repeated over and over again. The massive amount of heart power contained within the extreme flame heart lotus was also continuously absorbed by Tianyang. The power of Tianyang's soul skyrocketed as well, reaching the peak of the Saint Emperor realm. At this realm, he only needed one piercing god saber to kill Zhang Ming and Ling Fei, no matter how many of them there were. However, Tianyang was not satisfied. Transcending mortality and entering sainthood, transcending sainthood and entering godhood. The Saint Emperor realm was still within the Saint realm. What Tianyang wanted was to use the extreme flame heart lotus to transcend sainthood and enter divinity, even if it was only half a step. Boom! A loud sound rang out in Tianyang's mind. Tianyang's expression did not change, but his brows gradually furrowed. Although Tianyang had devoured most of the heart force within the heart lotus and reached the peak of Saint King, no Saint King's soul was more powerful than his. However, he was still a step away from the divine Tao. Just which step is it? Tianyang frowned. Although the Xintian major world had many connections with the divine world, the Xintian major world did not possess some of the orthodoxies that belonged to the divine world. Even now, Tianyang did not know what the greatest difference between the divine realm and the Saint Emperor realm was. The Saint Emperor condensed the origin of heaven and earth. Then where could he break through to the divine realm? Tianyang pondered deeply. He had a feeling that if he understood this point, his path to the divine realm would be smooth sailing. If he did not, he might be stuck in the Saint Emperor realm for a long time. The path of cultivation is to defy the heavens and seize fate. The power of heaven and earth is obtained and turned into one's own. The Saint Emperor realm has already obtained the origin of heaven and earth. In terms of using the power of heaven and earth, one has almost reached the limit. Then what's next? Light flashed through Tianyang's eyes. He seemed to have understood something, but he still could not grasp it. At this moment, the origin of chaos in Tianyang's dantian spun slightly. Chaos airflow suffused Tianyang's surroundings. The next moment, Tianyang's pupils constricted. The power of heaven and earth is already exhausted. What's next is to change heaven and earth. After the origin, there's already no path. Breaking away from heaven and earth and mastering the laws is the divine Tao. Usually, it was often said that martial Tao powerhouses could change heaven and earth with a raise of their hands and feet. But this was merely a change in the terrain and weather. While the divine Tao that Tianyang had just comprehended was to change heaven and earth above the foundation of heaven and earth, above the laws of all things. Laws followed with words, forming heaven and earth with a thought. It was merely a change of laws. Mortal realm relied on the power of heaven and earth. Saint realm used the power of heaven and earth, while divine realm controlled the power of heaven and earth. With this thought, everything suddenly became clear. The origin of chaos in his dantian also started trembling rapidly, as if it was going to undergo some kind of metamorphosis. Since that's the case, then divine Tao laws condense. Tianyang gave a low cry. One after another, divine chains of order formed in Tianyang's soul sea, surrounding the powerful heart force that came from the extreme flame heart lotus. Following that, they devoured and became stronger. The devouring of the heart force also surpassed the previous pure devouring, turning it into one's own. With a thought, Tianyang's heart force turned into countless sturdy divine Tao laws, moving freely in Tianyang's soul sea. A fortress belonging to the divine Tao was forged with divine chains of order as the skeleton and heart force as the flesh and blood. Boom! One after another, powerful and unparalleled pressure erupted from Tianyang's body. Immediately, the winds and clouds of heaven and earth abruptly changed. Bolts of lightning that could destroy heaven and earth were about to descend, blasting Tianyang to nothing. Inside vast sky, divine mountain. Someone broke through to divine realm. Jiang Haoshuan's expression changed at once, looking at the sky in disbelief. Lin Fenghua, Wu Zhou are fighting 10 parties. Following that, Jiang Haoshuan gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Just you wait. Even if I, Jiang Haoshuan, fall behind, I won't be weaker than you. Fighting 10 parties just broke through to half-step demigod. Looking at the situation now, he should have condensed divine Tao laws. It's unlikely that it's fighting 10 parties, but Lin Fenghua hasn't fought for a long time. It's not impossible that he obtained an opportunity in vast sky divine mountain and broke through in one go. Wu Zhou's expression darkened as he muttered to himself, "Looks like I have to work harder too." Meanwhile, Lin Fenghua stood outside Tianyang's array, looking at the rapidly fluctuating array in front of him. Traces of astonishment appeared on his face. Even I didn't notice these array formations. Following that, he looked up and his eyes widened. Divine Tao laws? The great change in the weather and the condensation of divine Tao laws directly shocked everyone. As for the instigator of all this, he sighed from within the grand formation. Still a little short. In his soul ocean, the divine Tao laws formed a small person. Unfortunately, although the small person had a skeleton, its strength was still insufficient. Right now, it was only half condensed. At this moment, Lin Fenghua's expression darkened and he snorted coldly. No matter who you are, don't even think about breaking through in front of me. Chapter 15:13. Bang! The sounds of formations exploding rang out. Tianyang, who had been immersed in the divine Tao nomological laws, narrowed his eyes. Someone wants to die just after breaking through. In the next moment, the power of his half-step divine soul suddenly erupted. Tianyang charged in the direction he sensed. No one had come to die when he had devoured the blazing flame, Saint King's spirit fire, and advanced the true flames of destruction to the 9th level. Now that his divine soul was half-step divine soul, someone couldn't wait to deliver their head to him. Since that was the case, Tianyang would satisfy him. The divine Tao nomological laws appeared at the same time as the formation was disrupted and forced to reveal itself. In other words, the person in the formation is someone who has formed the divine Tao nomological laws. Lin Fenghua's true yuan, which was close to that of a demigod, constantly broke Tianyang's formations. Then, the person who is breaking through must still be breaking through. If I attack, I can easily injure him. Lin Fenghua's eyes flashed with a smug light. He laughed coldly and punched out. The last formation that Tianyang had set up was destroyed by Lin Fenghua. After all, Tianyang had only set it up in a few minutes. In terms of strength, it was naturally far inferior to the 99 heavenly spiritual seals that Linglong had set up. It was enough to stop a Saint King, but it couldn't stop someone like Lin Fenghua, whose true battle strength had already surpassed a Saint King. Sword Realm, open. As Lin Fenghua destroyed the last formation and charged into the depths of the formation, a cold shout suddenly rang out. Then, sharp and fierce, swords viciously charged toward Lin Fenghua. At the same time, waves of pressure that belonged to the Sword Realm also appeared. What? Lin Fenghua's expression changed greatly. His pupils contracted as he growled, "Break for me!" Lin Fenghua's body began to burn. Then, a pure golden armor appeared on Lin Fenghua's body. Gungjin battle armor. Fist shaking all lives, Lin Fenghua roared and threw a punch at the 10,000 swords. Boom! A powerful and imperious gust of wind swept forward like a real storm, suppressing, destroying the 10,000 swords. At the same time, the metal origin domain was unleashed. Who dares to sneak attack me? Lin Fenghua roared angrily and released a powerful pressure that broke through Tianyang's Sword Realm seal and charged towards Tianyang. However, what faced him was not the face of his enemy as he had imagined. Instead, it was a sword light that was over 1,000 miles long. Lin Fenghua's expression changed drastically. He did not have time to roar. He released the inner yuan of a peak holy king and slammed it against the sword light. However, even so, it did not seem to have any intention of stopping the sword light's power. Boom! Lin Fenghua spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Waves of sword light swept past his skin, causing blood to spurt out. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lin Fenghua knelt on the ground, creating a huge crater with a diameter of over 10,000 meters. Who is it? Lin Fenghua roared in his heart. He was extremely aggrieved. From the moment he broke through the formation, he did not see what his opponent looked like. He only knew that he was constantly fighting against his opponent's attacks. The Gungjin battle armor that was formed using the metal origin had been damaged greatly in the previous battle. Even his skin had been cut open. Most importantly, the origin energy of the Sword Dao was constantly corroding his wounds, causing him to be unable to heal them immediately even with the strength of his powerful body. "Haven't you been looking for me?" Tianyang smiled. In a flash, he appeared in front of Lin Fenghua. Seeing this, Lin Fenghua was shocked. He raised his head and looked at Tianyang in disbelief. "Why is it you?" He had thought that the person who had formed the Divine Dao Law would be Jiang Haoshuan or one of the Fighting Ten parties. At the very least, he would be one of the best in the 5 states. In the end, it turned out to be Tianyang, an insignificant ant that he wanted to crush with a wave of his hand. A peak heaven great saint. How can a great saint condense the Divine Dao Law? Lin Fenghua gritted his teeth and glared at Tianyang. At the same time, he released the power of his primordial spirit and scanned the surroundings. "Speak. Where's the person behind you? I don't believe that he wouldn't dare to come out and fight me fair and square. Someone with this kind of strength is definitely not a nobody. Is it the Middle Cloud Realm's Sword Dao Holy Venerate or the Northern Liang Realm's 1,000-Sword Sovereign?" Lin Fenghua roared. His eyes were burning with anger. One of the two didn't attack immediately. Instead, he sent the ant Tianyang to humiliate him. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. What was that? Soon after, Tianyang understood what was going on in this person's mind. He chuckled softly. He released the power of a half-step divine soul. "Now, can you trust me?" In Tianyang's soul sea, the little person formed by the Divine Dao Law seemed to speak at this time. Seeing this, Lin Fenghua's face froze. What did he see? In front of him, it appeared on the body of this heaven great saint. Divine Dao Law? Half-step divine soul? How is this possible? Lin Fenghua roared. The origin of metal condensed in his hand and instantly exploded. Die! The Gung metal battle armor flowed into Lin Fenghua's palm like flowing water. It turned into a long sword and slashed fiercely at Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. A faint light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, The long sword seemed to have been frozen in place. It stopped in midair. However, there was no aura of the origin of time and space, because it was Lin Fenghua himself who froze. One look was enough to freeze Lin Fenghua's primordial spirit. Is he really a half-step divine soul? In less than a second, Lin Fenghua recovered and stared at Tianyang. His heart was filled with great astonishment. But so what if he's a half-step divine soul? Lin Fenghua's lips curled into a cold smile. In the next moment, an abnormal chaotic xinguang bloomed on Lin Fenghua's body. Lin Fenghua's aura also surged at this moment. He still has a trump card? Seeing this, Tianyang was stunned. At this moment, boom! A loud sound was heard. Then, an incomparably vast beam of light shot into the sky. The energy storm that it set off instantly attracted Tianyang's attention. What's that? At this moment, Lin Fenghua's eyes lit up. The chaotic xinguang on his body disappeared instantly. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of burning blood. Yang Tian, just you wait. We'll meet again someday. In the next moment, Lin Fenghua exploded with extreme speed. In an instant, he disappeared from Tianyang's sight. Tianyang was just about to use the origin of time and space to seal the surrounding time and space. However, Lin Fenghua seemed to have some kind of trump card. In that instant, he exploded with a speed that even the 8th transformation of the boundless 9 transformations could not compare to. Seeing this, Tianyang sighed. He actually let him escape. The divine Tao law on the primordial spirit did not increase speed. Forget it. So what if he ran away? That thing is quite interesting. Chapter 15:14. At this moment, beside the huge pillar of light, many people had already gathered there. Jiang Haoshuan of the Jiang clan, as well as Jiang Xian, who had previously helped Tianyang draw a wave of hatred, were all here. Jiang Xian, take a look and see what's inside the pillar of light. Jiang Haoshuan's expression was cold as he looked at the vast expanse of whiteness inside the pillar of light. Even he couldn't sense anything from the pillar of light. Inside the pillar of light, Jiang Xian tilted her head, then closed her eyes as if in deep thought. If there was a godly realm expert here, he would be able to see it through his divine soul. The moment Jiang Xian closed her eyes, strange waves spread out in all directions with Jiang Xian as the center. Even Jiang Haoshuan's primordial spirit, a peak holy emperor, could not pass through the pillar of light. But in the face of this pillar of light, it passed through it easily as if it did not exist. After about 3 minutes, Jiang Xian opened her eyes, somewhat surprised. The thing inside the pillar of light is a little strange. I can't see it clearly. A strange light flashed in her big purple eyes. Jiang Haoshuan's expression also changed when he heard this. Immediately, it became solemn. Even Jiang Xian could not see through the treasure inside the pillar of light. It gives me the feeling of that unknown person I met outside Haoxiao Divine Mountain, Jiang Xian said. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan's expression immediately darkened. His grip on the weapon in his hand also tightened. If Yang Tian was just an ordinary peak, heavenly great saint, and incomparably weak, then Jiang Haoshuan would not be a big deal. However, the fighting 10 parties actually had something to do with Tianyang. Although it was because of Jiang Xian, Jiang Haoshuan still felt uncomfortable. After all, although Jiang Xian looked lively and cute, and was the only normal person in the Jiang clan. However, Jiang Haoshuan knew that all this was just a mask that Jiang Xian put on for him. In fact, there was no difference at all. But now, wasn't Jiang Xian too much attention on an insignificant ant? It's almost done. At this moment, Jiang Xian suddenly said. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan did not have time to think so much. His eyes narrowed, revealing a soul-stirring cold light. Since even the power of his origin spirit couldn't see through it, even Jiang Xian's powerful perception couldn't see through it. This treasure must be extraordinary. Since Jiang Haoshuan had already come here, then the treasure in this light pillar was Jiang Haoshuan's. The true yuan of a peak holy emperor, close to that of a demigod, burst out. On the side, many people were like Jiang Haoshuan, waiting for the light pillar to dissipate so that they could fight for the treasure that had caused such a great phenomenon. However, Jiang Haoshuan was here. Many people exchanged glances with each other and nodded without leaving a trace. Then, they returned to their original state and quietly waited for the moment when the light pillar dissipated. Boom, 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 boom. The explosion caused by the light pillar was weakening, and the number of people attracted by the light pillar was decreasing. As for the pillar of light, it quickly began to shrink. 10,000 meters, 1,000 meters, 100 meters, 10 feet, 1 meter, 1 foot. Just as the light surrounding the treasure completely disappeared, the light surrounding the treasure disappeared. Boom, 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 boom. The power of the divine path and the origin of heaven and earth were released at the same time. Countless great sages, holy emperors, and even the best holy emperors attacked at the same time, viciously attacking Jiang Haoshuan. On a battlefield, there was one more wolf and one more tiger. Even if these wolves were not in the same group, they would first eliminate the tiger that posed the greatest threat. These holy emperors, great sages, and people on the hidden dragon roll of the Cloudfire territory were the wolves. And Jiang Haoshuan was the tiger. Hammer of Storm, Electric Thousand Blade, Mountain and Earth-shattering strike. Terrifying and tyrannical attacks that shook the space erupted at the same time. Waves of pressure also pressed down on Jiang Haoshuan. And there's no need to resist. Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan only snorted coldly. A ray of light flashed across his eyes. It was as if there was an ancient aura flashing across his eyes. A mysterious ancient word appeared in Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. Suppress. Jiang Haoshuan opened his mouth. His syllables were mysterious and cryptic. A ray of light that was invisible to the naked eye was released from Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. Boom! In an instant, the countless terrifying attacks that were enough to plow through half of the land of the Cloudfire territory seemed to be hit by the palm of a giant god. Suddenly, it fell, and then it shattered. The attacks launched by countless experts were reduced to nothing by Jiang Haoshuan's one word. Ants, you're just ants. Jiang Haoshuan's expression was indifferent as he said. Those who launched the attacks were all stunned on the spot. The attacks launched by so many famous geniuses on the hidden dragon roll were actually suppressed by Jiang Haoshuan's one word. One should know that there were also peak holy emperors among them. However, they had not come into contact with divine Tao nomological laws and were not close to being demigods. This is the Jiang clan, the Jiang clans, suppressing ancient sky eyes. Someone stared fixedly at Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. His entire body suddenly trembled as he said hoarsely, Jiang Haoshuan did not have any special body constitution, but he had a pair of eyes. The suppressing ancient sky eyes that the ancestor of the ancient Jiang clan used to suppress the sky. Once the suppressing ancient sky eyes were used, as long as the attack was below the suppressing ancient sky eyes, it would be completely suppressed and collapsed. Even if the opponent's cultivation was similar, it would be difficult to compete with the suppressing ancient sky eyes unless they had some powerful magical power. To be able to become the young master of the Jiang clan and lead the geniuses of the Jiang clan, surpassing the hidden dragon roll of the Cloudfire territory and becoming one of the true dragon roll of the nearby 100 territories. The suppressing ancient sky eyes, Jiang Haoshuan, lived up to his reputation. I don't believe that the suppressing ancient sky eyes of the Jiang clan is really so powerful. At this moment, a peak holy emperor who was injured by the backlash of his attack being shattered roared with bloodshot eyes. Give me your life. In the next moment, blood flames burned on that person's body. His aura skyrocketed as he charged towards Jiang Haoshuan fiercely. Someone's eyes narrowed as they looked at that man. This was the berserker blood battle body. It was also a rather powerful body constitution. Soul-shattering blow. Suppress. Jiang Haoshuan said coldly. The mysterious ancient text appeared in the suppressing ancient sky eyes again. Boom. That peak holy emperor immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood flames on his body were extinguished instantly as he fell to the ground. Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan shook his head and walked forward. This treasure. Jiang Haoshuan looked at the treasure that looked like a bone in front of him and frowned slightly. However, he still reached out his hand. Suddenly, there was a suction force. That white bone disappeared from Jiang Haoshuan's sight. Sorry, I'm more interested in this bone. Chapter 15:15. I'm more interested. A clear and bright laugh rang out. Jiang Haoshuan could only watch helplessly as the white bone that was almost in his hands flew away just like that. Although he didn't know what the white bone was, Jiang Haoshuan knew very well. An existence that could cause such a terrifying commotion was definitely not an ordinary object. Moreover, this was the greatest land of opportunity in the Cloudfire territory, vast sky, sacred mountain. Damn it! Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppression, heavenly eyes fluctuated rapidly at this moment. Then he looked up. Before he could even see clearly who had attacked him, the light of the ancient suppression, heavenly eyes suddenly burst forth. One word suppresses all ages. Jiang Haoshuan roared. Two pillars of light bloomed from Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. This time, it wasn't the suppressive force used against the sage emperors and great sages. Instead, it was a suppressive force. Jiang Haoshuan was enraged to the extreme by this person who had suddenly appeared and snatched away his treasure. This is, looking at the two pillars of light, Tianyang's face revealed a trace of surprise. He could tell at a glance that this was a special constitution that Jiang Haoshuan possessed. However, he had never seen this constitution before. Even in the countless records of the Xiantian Great Cosmos, it had never appeared before. Interesting. Tianyang's lips curled up. A black light flashed in his hand. Burning with raging black flames, the great void, sword embryo, slashed down. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. After this collision, the ground where Tianyang and Jiang Haoshuan were standing trembled nonstop. It was as if the earth was roaring. Seeing this, although Jiang Haoshuan's face didn't show any expression, his heart was in turmoil. This person had actually blocked the suppressive force of his ancient suppression, heavenly eyes. This was an attack that not even Lin Fenghua from the 5 prefectures would be willing to face, as expected of a special physique unique to the divine world. The power of these eyes is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, the voice sounded again, and Jiang Haoshuan lifted his head to take a look. Then his expression instantly froze. It's you? Jiang Haoshuan said in disbelief. That fellow who had suddenly made a move, snatched away by Gu, who had already become his possession, and took his suppressing ancient heavenly eyes head-on, was actually the person who he was not even willing to take a second look at outside vast sky divine mountain. Even though he was shocked by Tianyang's powerful strength, Jiang Haoshuan could not call out his name. Because he was too disdainful, he didn't even bother to know the other party's name. Wow, it's that strange big brother. On the other hand, Jiang Xian's face lit up when she saw Tianyang. I knew that big brother was not simple. Now it seems that Baigu is really related to big brother. Jiang Xian said loudly. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan's face became even more gloomy. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. He appeared behind Tianyang, and a long saber instantly condensed in his hand. He slashed fiercely at Tianyang's head. No matter who you are, you dare to snatch from my hands. Only death awaits you. A peak holy emperor's vital energy, which was close to that of a demigod, bloomed on the blade. Sky-shattering sword dance. Countless sword lights slashed out from Jiang Haoshuan's long saber at this moment. It was clearly a long saber, but when it performed this sword dance, it actually had the same elegance as a sword. Not bad. Tianyang smiled lightly. At this moment, wisps of powerful primary force were unleashed. Sword realm open. Boom! The surrounding world seemed to have turned into a world of swords at this moment. The sword dance performed by Jiang Haoshuan was instantly suppressed by the power of the sword realm. Suppress? Jiang Haoshuan's expression suddenly changed when he saw this. Then, incomparable fury began to burn on his face. Try to suppress in front of my suppressing ancient heavenly eyes. showing off in front of an expert. Jiang Haoshuan roared. In his eyes, an ancient word released a bright light. A terrifying suppressive force gushed out from the suppressing ancient heavenly eyes. For a moment, it actually wiped out the power of Tianyang's sword realm and suppressed it at the same time. Sensing that the sword realm was at a disadvantage, Tianyang's eyes suddenly flashed. The corner of his mouth curled up. Although this genius of the divine world had not stepped into the demigod realm and was still in the sage realm, but this power was far from what an ordinary holy emperor could compare to. To be able to achieve such a dazzling achievement, he must have some skills. Since that's the case, let's play. After keeping the white bone, Tianyang smiled and released the sword realm to the extreme. He held the great void sword embryo tightly in his hand and fought fiercely with Jiang Haoshuan. Boom, boom, boom. Loud sounds were heard. The great void sword embryo and Jiang Haoshuan's long saber kept colliding. In midair, there were explosions that caused the space to tremble. In Jiang Haoshuan's eyes, the ancient word suppressing was still flickering. It released waves of suppressive force in an attempt to completely suppress Tianyang. However, in Jiang Haoshuan's senses, although Tianyang's sword realm could not withstand his suppressing ancient heavenly eyes, it was like a slippery fish. However, Tianyang was like a slippery loach. Just when Jiang Haoshuan thought he could completely suppress Tianyang, Tianyang would erupt with a wave of resistance and forcefully turn the situation around. It was as if Tianyang was deliberately controlling the situation. This is impossible. Flames burned in Jiang Haoshuan's eyes. With a low roar, the ancient word suppressing bloomed with unprecedented light. One eye shatter time. Jiang Haoshuan let out a roar as a destructive beam of light shot out. With extreme speed, it arrived in front of Tianyang in the blink of an eye. Go to hell, Jiang Haoshuan roared. As expected, Tianyang did not succeed in blocking it. He was swallowed by this powerful, destructive light pillar. Ha ha ha. Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan laughed maniacally. No matter how evil this guy was, he was still vulnerable in front of him, one of the three heavenly prides of the Cloud Fire territory and a person on the true dragon roll. Below, the crowd also looked at the sky in shock. The person from before was killed by Jiang Haoshuan just like that. So, this is Jiang Haoshuan's real trump card. If he used this move against us previously, I'm afraid we would have. As he listened to the praises and fearful comments, the corners of Jiang Haoshuan's lips curled up. At this moment, the light pillar dissipated. Tianyang's body appeared. Although he was still alive, his left arm had disappeared. As expected, seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan laughed maniacally. Tianyang looked at his left arm casually. Good, very strong. Then, an undying flame burned. In just a breath's time, the missing left arm was restored. Chapter 15:16. Let's do it again. Tianyang smiled faintly as he casually swung his newly regenerated left arm. Although this left arm was newly regenerated, it still didn't match Tianyang's original skin. However, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it also merged with Tianyang's original body. Swinging it around, it was as natural as if it had never been broken. It was as if the destructive light beam that Jiang Haoshuan unleashed with all his might was nothing. Although he had severed Tianyang's left arm, it had recovered under the effect of the immortal blood. Apart from causing Tianyang to lose some blood, it really seemed to be nothing. However, Jiang Haoshuan obviously couldn't accept this fact. Impossible, impossible, impossible. How can my ancient suppressing heavenly eyes lose? How can it be blocked so easily? Jiang Haoshuan roared crazily as the light of the ancient characters in his eyes gradually dimmed. After using the destructive light beam this time, even the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes couldn't hold on any longer. Just a second ago, the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes unleashed its power and destroyed all enemies in the world. Even the mighty and domineering Tianyang lost his left arm under the strongest attack of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, which sealed his victory. But now, his left arm which had just been reduced to nothingness, recovered right under his nose. He could only watch helplessly as it recovered once again. It didn't look like it was exhausted at all. Again, Tianyang smiled and smacked his lips. The power of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes was indeed a special physique unique to the god realm. However, the reason he lost his arm wasn't that he didn't have time to resist. He wanted to see, since the chaos origin was the origin of all techniques, then could he use the chaos aura to forcefully break the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes' ultimate attack? Tianyang had a feeling that the attack of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes, which was filled with the power of destruction, would have a great effect on his time, origin, and life origin. If he could obtain it, it could be said that he would be able to obtain a new trump card without any effort. Again, Jiang Haoshuan was stunned. His eyes stared at Tianyang as if he wanted to devour Tianyang. In the next moment, his long hair instantly burst out. Again, Jiang Haoshuan's eyes were bloodshot, as if he had gone mad. The ancient suppressing heavenly eyes that had already dimmed released rays of light again. At this moment, the word suppress once again erupted with rays of light. Since you want it, I'll give it to you. Ancient suppression heavenly eyes break the chaos of time. A heavenly eyes, Jiang, a destructive light beams, eyes. But at this moment, Heavenly Sun's expression changed. His eyes narrowed as he revolved the chaos source. Streaks of chaotic airflow flew out of Tianyang's dantian and condensed on Tianyang's palm. Tianyang's demigod primordial spirit was also activated to the extreme at this moment. Boom! The destructive light beam exploded. Tianyang raised his right hand and aimed at the destructive light beam. Streaks of chaotic airflow swept out like a storm. In the next moment, the destructive light beam violently bombarded Tianyang's palm. Then, contrary to Jiang Haoshuan's expectations, the huge destructive light beam swallowed Tianyang and even severely injured and killed him. Instead, it turned into rays of dazzling light dust. It exploded in an instant. How is this possible? Seeing this, Jiang Haoshuan's body trembled as he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. His destructive light beam was even more direct and thorough than before. He raised his hand and did not even feel the fluctuation of true yuan. That pillar of light turned into dust that filled the sky before exploding. Tianyang's expression turned serious, and he withdrew his palm. The ancient suppression heavenly I was indeed not that easy to break. Although the origin of chaos was the origin of all techniques, it was still very difficult to reverse the process. Even though Tianyang's control of the origin of chaos had reached an unusually high level, it was still difficult for him to do so. If Jiang Haoshuan had dug out the ancient suppression heavenly eye and placed it in front of him, it might have been possible. However, Tianyang had no interest in changing the eye. I don't believe it, Jiang Haoshuan roared. In his eyes, the ancient character of suppression once again emitted rays of dazzling light. That powerful destructive force seemed to be condensing again. However, this time, the light released by the ancient character of suppression was fluctuating. Even so, Jiang Haoshuan still stared at Tianyang and tried to attack again. You can't beat him. At this moment, a voice sounded. The power of the ancient suppression heavenly eye that Jiang Haoshuan had just condensed suddenly stopped. Then it dissipated. Come back. Tianyang turned around and saw that the person who spoke was actually Jiang Xian. Jiang Haoshuan still wanted to say something, but he could only sigh. He withdrew the ancient suppression heavenly eye and flew to the ground. Jiang Xian, on the other hand, did not spare Jiang Haoshuan another glance. Instead, she looked at Tianyang and revealed a mischievous and adorable smile. Big brother is so strong. I wonder if you're interested in joining us? Jiang Xian smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang did not even hesitate and shook his head. Jiang Xian might look like a cute, and innocent young girl, but she was actually a little girl. Just the two sentences from before had already exposed Jiang Xian's extraordinariness. Believe her? That would be the #1 idiot in the world. Moreover, after stepping into the demigod's soul realm, Tianyang also felt that something was wrong. This girl's body would occasionally emit a strange fluctuation. It was not strong, but gave Tianyang an extremely strange feeling. Strange and unfathomable. Shouldn't he tell such a person to stay away for the new year? If that's the case, I'm very sad. After being rejected so decisively, Jiang Xian's face revealed a dejected expression. Then she raised her head. Then I still don't know Big Brother's name. Yang Tian. Tianyang said indifferently. Then he turned around and left. After defeating Lin Fenghua, when he returned to the Great Sun Sect, Yang Tian's name would definitely resound throughout the entire vast sky, Sacred Mountain. This way, it would be the same whether he told Jiang Xian or not. Looking at Tianyang's departing figure, Jiang Xian's expression did not change. Her eyes flashed. He can't run away. Vast sky, Sacred Mountain, in the first layer of the heavenly seal. Tianyang randomly found a relatively hidden cave and entered it. He took out the white bone that he had just snatched from Jiang Haoshuan. He had just fought with Lin Fenghua when he was in the demigod soul realm. If it was not necessary, Tianyang would not continue to make enemies with the Jiang clan. However, the value of this white bone was not just to make enemies with the Jiang clan. Even if Tianyang killed Jiang Haoshuan, it would be worth it. I can't find it in the Xintian Great World, but I can find it in the realm of the gods. Tianyang smiled slightly and looked at the white bone in his hand with a burning gaze. A wisp of immortal flame burned fiercely. The outer layer of the white bone gradually melted, revealing the crystal-clear bones underneath. Tianyang was very familiar with these bones. The Immortal Divine Body. Chapter 15-17. Immortal Divine Body, Indestructible Body. As Tianyang's primordial spirit power flowed into Tianyang's mind, a huge amount of information flowed into his mind. Tianyang had already cultivated 3 levels of the Immortal Divine Body. Indestructible eye, indestructible bone, and indestructible blood. Among them, indestructible eye gave him a powerful eye technique superpower. Indestructible bone gave him a strong physical body that was invincible among his peers. Indestructible blood gave Tianyang the superpower of rebirth from a single drop of blood. If not for indestructible blood, Tianyang would not have resisted Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppressing heavenly eyes. No matter how weak a special body constitution was, it was still a special body constitution of the divine world. As expected, indestructible eye is the entry level of the immortal divine body. It's just to activate the immortal divine fire. Next, indestructible bone and indestructible blood are the main body of the immortal divine body. Bones, bloodline, and next, the physical body. Tianyang smiled and held the indestructible body in his hand. He had a feeling that if he cultivated the indestructible body, he could defeat all the saint emperors in the world with his physical strength. Besides, I can also consider the 8th essence. However, I don't know if this indestructible body is a treasure of the heaven's expanse emperor or something from someone who died here. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up. However, no matter what, he had benefited from this. Without the immortal bloodline, no one could cultivate it successfully. After preparing for a while, Tianyang took a deep breath. Then, the immortal divine fire burned. Tianyang sat on the ground with his legs crossed. The immortal divine fire burned on his body, making him look like a man on fire. The indestructible body requires the most powerful immortal divine fire to burn the physical body and reconstruct it 108,000 times. With the immortal will as the core, the indestructible bone as the frame, and the indestructible blood as the source, a supreme physical body is created, as expected of the immortal bloodline. The cultivation method of the indestructible body is really ruthless. Tianyang chuckled, but he still raised the immortal flame to the highest level. In less than 10 seconds, the body that Tianyang had painstakingly cultivated was burned to ashes. However, it was just burning his physical body. What did Tianyang have to fear? He was a man who had died twice. Just as Tianyang was looking for a cave to begin cultivating his indestructible body, the entire vast heavens sacred mountain had undergone tremendous changes. Or rather, the entire vast sky, godly mountain, was constantly changing. As time passed, the change became more and more obvious. For example, the Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and other powerful organizations constantly spread the news that they had obtained various powerful treasures. Some Saint Kings had even reached the peak of Saint King with the assistance of these treasures. This was merely the first level of the heavenly restriction of the vast sky, divine mountain. The first level of the heavenly restriction already has so many opportunities. This is not like the previous vast sky, divine mountain. At the intersection of the first and second levels of the heavenly restriction, the fighting 10 parties casually pulled out the purple lightning godly spear and took away his opponent's space bag. Then, he looked at the second level of the heavenly restriction and muttered to himself, I don't know if it's a coincidence or if something has happened at the Cloud Fire Dao competition. I don't know. Jiang Xian, what do you think? Jiang Haoshuan of the Jiang clan looked at Jiang Xian and asked. Hearing this, Jiang Xian pondered for a moment and shook her head. What I can be sure of is that the vast sky divine mountain will not be peaceful this time. The fighting 10 parties is not the only variable. The cultivation of the indestructible body was easier than Tianyang had imagined. After all, Tianyang had completely comprehended the immortal will after the battle with the undying prince. His indestructible bones and indestructible blood had also been cultivated to the peak. He had even cultivated the rebirth from a drop of blood. Cultivating the initial stage of the indestructible body was not difficult. However, after burning himself 88,000 times, Tianyang realized that the indestructible body was not easy to cultivate. Even if he had cultivated the initial stage of the indestructible body, it was extremely difficult to go any further. What a pity. Tianyang sighed and stood up. The immortal divine fire on his body also dissipated at this moment. Tianyang casually pulled out a piece of clothing from the space bag and put it on. Then he clenched his fist. The cultivation of the immortal divine body would not cause much of a change to one's appearance. The current Tianyang was still the same as when he had just been reborn. He was relatively thin. However, he punched out. Boom! Ripples appeared in the air. Then, like glass shattering, pieces of glass burst out. Seeing this, Tianyang's face showed traces of satisfaction. The space in the divine realm was far more stable than the Xiantian Great World. The vast heavens sacred mountain had the divine power of the vast heavens emperor, so it was more stable than the outside world. Previously, Jiang Haoshuan's suppressing ancient heavenly eyes could not destroy the space in the slightest. However, his punch was able to do so. From this, one could see how strong Tianyang's physical body was now. I've almost finished absorbing the destructive power of the suppressing ancient heavenly eyes. When the time comes, I'll try to create a new sword technique. Tianyang chuckled. Then, in a flash, he left the cave. However, as soon as he stepped out, Tianyang felt that something was wrong. The sky seemed to be more bloody than before. Tianyang frowned. He suspected that he was hallucinating or that the immortal eyes had been accidentally activated. However, no matter how Tianyang looked, the sky seemed to be dyed red with blood. This is strange. Tianyang shook his head. Vast heaven's Holy Spirit, what do you think? Tianyang had only spent about 2 weeks cultivating the indestructible body. There was still more than half a year before the vast heavens sacred mountain closed. This is strange. The vast heavens Holy Spirit spoke. It's been 2 weeks, but I still haven't broken the 9 heavenly seals of the vast heavens sacred mountain. In my memory, the 9 heavenly seals are the seals that the heavens expanse Emperor Lord set up back then. They were accidentally leaked out. Although there are 9 layers, they are very simple and should be easy to break. That way, you can directly go and obtain the heavens expanse Emperor Lord's treasures. However, the 9 heavenly seals are simple, but they are very chaotic. The vast heavens Holy Spirit said, There was a hint of worry in his voice. However, after thinking for a while, he did not say it out loud. After all, it's a treasure left behind by an emperor. The other vast heavens holy palace that you absorbed did not fully absorb it. She might not have the complete information. In this vast heavens sacred mountain, only we can take the treasure that the vast heavens emperor left behind. That's enough. Tianyang smiled. Hearing that, the vast heavens Holy Spirit did not reply. Instead, he replied with a simple mem and continued to study. Tianyang raised his head and released the power of his primordial spirit. His eyes flickered. This vast heavens sacred mountain was really a meat grinder. Within the range of Tianyang's primordial spirit, there were many corpses that were not even cold yet. Just as Tianyang was about to find someone to ask, a resplendent radiance was suddenly released in the distance. A light screen seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. Then it fell rapidly. Instantly, Tianyang heard a few crucial words. Chapter 15:18. The second level of the heavenly seal. Tianyang's sharp senses captured these words. Then, he looked at the heavenly seal in the distance. The heavenly seal continued to fall, but many people had already leaped into the air and crossed the heavenly seal. Vast sky, godly mountain, 9 levels of heavenly seal. Now it seemed that the heavenly seal was the second level of heavenly seal. However, if it's a seal, why would it open automatically? Tianyang could not help but ponder for a while. However, since he could not solve it, Tianyang threw it aside. The 8th change of the heavenly expanse, 9 changes, was unleashed. Whoosh! In an instant, he disappeared on the spot. Since the second level of the 9 levels of heavenly seal had opened, the treasures in the second level of heavenly seal must have appeared. Aya, isn't this Brother Yang Tian? I've been looking for you in the first level of heavenly seal for a while, but I couldn't find you. Big brother, where did you run off to? Just as Tianyang was flying, a loud voice rang in his ears. Tianyang did not need to turn his head to know who it was. It was none other than the fighting 10 parties who had been bombarded by Jiang Haoshuan, Lin Fenghua, and a guy named Wu Zhou the moment he appeared. Tianyang could not recognize this voice that was full of vulgarity. Why aren't you replying? At this moment, the fighting 10 parties came in front of Tianyang with a grin. The purple lightning on the purple lightning, godly spear in his hand, slowly retracted. I heard from little sister Jiang Xian that you even beat up Jiang Haoshuan. You even took 2 of his ancient suppression heavenly eyes full force attacks and directly caused him to become autistic. It's a pity that I didn't see it back then. Can you tell me more about it? The fighting 10 parties laughed casually. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately turned around. He passed through the fighting 10 parties and flew forward. Aya, that's not interesting. Seeing this, fighting 10 parties suddenly shouted, I'm not here to fight you one-on-one. You don't have to be so cold. I'm so handsome, and I'm going to be hurt if you treat me so coldly. Fighting 10 parties said. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. This fellow really dared to say such things. However, Tianyang had no choice but to open his mouth. What? In the divine world, other than the Enigma Fire Dynasty, he basically did not know anyone else. The Undying Prince knew Luo Yinyang. However, he knew Luo Yinyang well. Tianyang was not stupid. Experts, especially experts like Zhan Shifeng, who had climbed out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood like the Nether Spring underworld, were definitely not fools. There must be a reason for him to come uninvited. I like talking to smart people. Brother Yang Tian is a smart person. Hearing this, the fighting 10 parties' eyes also revealed a sharp light. Back then, Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua were idiots. They didn't know what I wanted to do, so I messed with them. Brother Yang Tian is a smart person. Then, it's easy to talk about it. The fighting 10 parties smiled and said, I wonder how much Brother Yang Tian knows about the second level restriction of Vast Sky, Divine Mountain. I don't know much. Tianyang said directly. Even though they were talking, they were still flying forward. Now, they had reached a higher level and stepped into the second level restriction of Vast Sky, Divine Mountain. Tianyang also noticed that the fighting 10 parties seemed to be consciously flying in a certain direction. Brother Yang Tian is honest. However, since you're from the outside, it's normal that you don't know much about Vast Sky Divine Mountain in the Cloudfire territory. Although the first heavenly seal of the vast firmament sacred mountain is the first heavenly seal, the opportunities within it are not the worst. On the contrary, there are high and low heavenly seals. Some people might step into a pile of shit when the second level restriction opens. Some people might find a divine artifact left behind from ancient times. The fighting 10 parties said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. If they were ranked according to strength, he would not be able to get the indestructible body that he had just obtained unless he entered the last 3 levels restriction. However, the second level of the heavenly seal is different. There are scattered treasures, but most of them are in a large hall. The fighting 10 parties laughed and said, that is the real treasure trove of the second level restriction of Vast Sky Divine Mountain. The Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and the 5 states all have a grudge against me. 2 fists can't fight against 4 hands. Why don't Brother Yang Tian join me? In this way, the Jiang clan and the Great Sun Sect will have nothing to fear. The fighting 10 parties' eyes were shining as he laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change at all. He quietly looked at the fighting 10 parties. You mean, I join forces with you to go to the treasure trove, and then help you offend the Great Sun Sect, the Jiang clan, and the other 3 forces that have the absolute advantage in Vast Sky Divine Mountain? Tianyang chuckled and said, when the time comes, if you stab me, won't I be attacked from both sides? Then, everything will be convenient for you. Tianyang chuckled, but there was a trace of distrust in his eyes. It was clear as day. Hearing this, the fighting 10 parties were also stunned. They did not expect that such a tempting suggestion would be rejected by Tianyang without even thinking about it. But now, haven't you offended the Great Sun Sect and the Jiang clan? If you join forces with me, not only can your battle strength increase greatly, but you can also get more treasures. Even if you encounter Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, and the other 3 from the 5 states, you can definitely escape unscathed. The fighting 10 parties persuaded. However, in the next moment, Tianyang left in a flash. Not interested, but thank you for bringing me here. Tianyang's laughter slowly came. At this time, the fighting 10 parties realized that they had actually brought Tianyang to the treasure trove. He could not help but smile and shook his head. If that's the case, then forget it. Even the Nether Spring is under my feet. The fighting 10 parties, can deal with this vast heaven divine hall by myself. Then, the fighting 10 parties raised the purple lightning godly spear and rushed towards the majestic hall below. Below, Tianyang had already landed on the ground. With the strength of his half-step divine soul, he easily avoided everyone and came to a corner, carefully observing the hall in front of him. The hall was not open, and no aura leaked out. However, as Tianyang looked, he felt that something was wrong. This vast heaven divine hall seemed to be somewhat familiar. Tianyang's heart moved, and the vast heaven divine hall's origin energy appeared in his hand. Almost everything in this vast heaven divine mountain could be related to the vast heaven emperor. Since that was the case, using the vast heaven divine hall's origin energy to probe was the best choice. Tianyang slammed his palm against the wall of the main hall. Suddenly, streams of powerful vast heaven divine hall's origin energy rushed into the hall. All of a sudden, rays of mysterious light were released from the majestic but pitch-black palace. Mysterious runes lit up one after another, releasing an incomparably tyrannical aura. What's going on? Suddenly, someone realized that something was wrong with the vast heaven divine hall, and his expression changed drastically. Tianyang's expression also changed when he saw the mysterious lines. Chapter 15:19. Heaven's Expanse Temple. Tianyang immediately recognized the source of this sense of familiarity when he sensed something familiar about the hall. He had been talking to the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, but he rarely entered the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Vientiane Sky ruins. Therefore, Even though the temple was very similar to the Heaven's Expanse temple, Tianyang did not recognize it immediately. Isn't the vast sky holy mountain formed by the Heaven's Expanse Emperor's treasure seal? The Heaven's Expanse temple is a fragment of the Heaven's Expanse temple. Why would it appear here? Tianyang immediately realized that something was wrong. According to the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit's memory, when the Heaven's Expanse temple was torn apart and scattered to the myriad worlds, the Heaven's Expanse Emperor seemed to have undergone a great change. Where did he get the time to leave this treasure behind? The timing did not match at all. This Heaven's Expanse temple. What's going on? Even the Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit, who was focused on breaking the 9 heavenly seals on the vast sky, holy mountain, was shocked. The slightly immature voice was filled with disbelief. The vast sky, holy mountain, and the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had a close relationship, and the Heaven's Expanse temple was even more closely related to the Heaven's Expanse Emperor. However, it was impossible for the Heaven's Expanse temple to appear here. Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit. Could it be that the Heaven's Expanse Emperor had created a half-finished product before he created the Heaven's Expanse temple? Tianyang asked. If that was not the case, there was no other explanation. Not in my memory. Not in her memory either. The Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit spoke slowly, his tone solemn. However, your vast expanse force from before seemed to have opened this palace too. If you don't go in, the others might have already gone in. The Heaven's Expanse Saint Spirit's voice rang out. Hearing that, Tianyang was shocked. He nodded slightly, and his body flashed. The powerful primordial spirit of a half-step godly soul was released, forcing everyone away and blocking their senses. He was the first to rush into the Heaven's Expanse temple. What entered his eyes was not the Heaven's Expanse temple that he had seen for the first time in the 9 universe sky ruins. Instead, it was a vast space. Dragons coiled around the pillars, and the clouds at the top of the sky seemed to have a vast energy flowing within them. Although Tianyang was the first to enter, there were still quite a number of people who rushed into the Heaven's Expanse Saint Hall. It was as if they were already familiar with this place. As soon as they stepped in, they rushed in all directions without any hesitation. Since they're already so familiar with the place, the treasures inside should have already been plundered. Why are there still so many people entering the palace? Tianyang muttered to himself, but his movements did not slow down. Among the countless great sages, half-saint emperors, and saint emperors, he chose the one who seemed to be the most familiar with the palace. He secretly released the power of his nascent divinity to envelop himself before following the others. This person looked ordinary. Although he had the battle prowess of a half-holy emperor, he seemed to be very timid. After looking around and discovering that no one was following him, he let out a sigh of relief and flew towards a certain direction at full speed. However, he did not know. Under the effect of Tianyang's powerful nascent divinity, even if Tianyang was standing in front of him, he would not be able to see Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang was swaggering behind the half-holy emperor. The space within the Heaven's Expanse temple seemed to be abnormally huge. Although the Heaven's Expanse temple in the Vientiane sky ruins was huge, it was at most the size of an ordinary city like the Tianshao Great World, Yun City of the Snowy Nation, or Yangtian City. However, this Heaven's Expanse temple, this half-holy emperor had cultivated some kind of origin energy. His speed was so fast that it was almost at the 3rd change of the Heaven's Expanse 9 changes. Although he had only flown for a few minutes, he was probably tens of thousands of miles away. Although there were some twists and turns, it was many times bigger than the one in Tianyang's Vientiane sky ruins. I finally found it. The half-holy emperor flew quickly. Finally, after making 7 or 8 turns and confirming that no one was following him, he took out a map. On the map, there was the terrain of the Heaven's Expanse temple. After that, the half-holy emperor made a few gestures on the map and happily moved to a small temple. However, as soon as the half-martial dominator tried to enter the palace, runes appeared on the door of the small palace. A powerful force flowed within the runes to stop the half-martial dominator. There's a formation. The half-holy emperor's expression changed slightly. He activated his half-holy emperor force and punched out. However, the formation only circulated a ray of light and easily blocked the half-holy emperor's attack. The half-holy emperor's expression changed when he saw this. He clenched his teeth unwillingly, and wisps of white energy appeared in his hand. Heavenly cloud, divine path. The half-holy emperor shouted. In the next moment, his true origin energy exploded and burned around him like a flame. He punched out. Unfortunately, the formation did not budge. Even though the heavenly cloud divine path's attack was the half-holy emperor's full force attack, it did not change at all. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor's eyes flashed with a trace of unwillingness. Am I going to stop here? It seems that even a holy emperor can't open this formation. I wonder if you need help. At this moment, a light laugh sounded. Tianyang removed the half-holy primordial spirit's barrier and laughed lightly. However, from the half-holy emperor's point of view, what should have been empty beside her was a young man who had suddenly appeared. F*CK. The half-holy emperor instinctively punched out with holy Tao energy. However, Tianyang smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to block the attack. Don't worry, I've been following you all the way. If I wanted to attack you, I would have done so long ago. Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, the half-holy emperor was even more shocked. He had been following him all the way, and he did not even realize it. How powerful was this person? However, the holy Tao that you cultivate is a little interesting. Tianyang looked at the remaining heavenly cloud, divine path's power in his hand. It's a little similar to the power of the vast sky, divine mountain. Hearing this, the half-holy emperor's expression changed. This holy Tao was indeed comprehended by me according to the power of the vast sky, divine mountain. But this doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. The half-holy emperor's voice trembled. The person beside him seemed to be much more powerful than him. This meant that his life was under Tianyang's control. How could the half-holy emperor not tremble? A half-holy emperor could only be considered below average among the countless experts who had entered the vast sky, divine mountain. Indeed, it doesn't matter. However, I'm a little interested in the map you took out earlier. Tianyang smiled slightly, and a sharp light flashed in his hand. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor trembled even more. Chapter 15:20. What's your name? Tianyang chuckled. The sharp blade in his hand flickered with flickering light, as if it could disappear and reappear in his neck at any moment. Seeing this, the half-holy emperor was even more terrified. However, this fear could not be turned into strength. I'm Tian Ming, from Luxiong City in the Cloud Fire Territory. I'm a peak half-holy emperor and about to condense origin. I'm 282 years old. I obtained this map by chance. In order to attain the Saint Emperor level in the vast sky, divine mountain, the half-holy emperor called Tian Ming hurriedly said. He did not dare to stammer. In front of an existence that could wipe him off the face of this world at any time, if he were to stammer and make the other party unhappy, the sharp light might chop off his head immediately. You're only a peak half-holy emperor at 200 years old. How did you enter the vast sky, divine mountain? Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes were filled with curiosity as he asked. To enter the vast sky, divine mountain, one must first possess vast power. The Cloud Fire Territory's various factions had worked together to create countless Cloud Fire Path tokens. In reality, they sealed the vast power that leaked from the vast sky, divine mountain into the tokens. They used it as a pass to enter the vast sky, divine mountain. Originally, the vast power that leaked from the vast sky, divine mountain, should have been released randomly in the surroundings. Then, the people who entered the vast sky, divine mountain would also be randomly selected. Unfortunately, the various factions in the Cloud Fire Territory had discovered the vast sky, divine mountain too early and monopolized the right to enter the vast sky, divine mountain. When Zhang Ming and Ling Fei came to the Xuanhua dynasty to find people, they had all sorts of requirements. Tian Ming was not qualified at all. Hearing this, Tian Ming said awkwardly. Although he did not want to say it, He had to say it in order to survive. The disciple that the Great Sun sect sent to Lu Xiong City happened to be my nephew. Hence, I came in. Oh, hearing this, Tianyang immediately understood. Tianming had connections. However, Tianyang did not intend to pursue this matter. Tianming's connections did not affect him. It was none of his business. What's the origin of that map? Tianyang was curious. The vast Sky Divine Mountain was not created by humans. Naturally, no one could create a map. Although he had only taken a quick glance, he could see that the map was complete. At first glance, it was obvious that it was made by someone. I don't know either. I just happened to get this map and came here to try my luck. I've been here many times, so I know the layout of the palace. Tianming said. Tianyang nodded slightly. Tian's is this map. I'll give it to you, sir. I wonder, is Heavenly Sun Path. Tianming's hair stood on end when he heard this. His expression was even uglier than if his father had died. L.B. was. It was obvious what kind of person he was. Why did he not suppress the heavens and earth to get the treasure? Why did he target him, a guy who had not broken through to the Holy Emperor realm after coming to Vast Sky, Divine Mountain, so many times? However, even so, Tianming had no choice but to accept his fate. I wonder, what's your name, sir? Tianyang smiled. Yang Tian. Tianming was stunned. Then his body shook and his pupils constricted. Yang Tian, the terrifying person who forced Lin Fenghua to retreat, defeated Jiang Haoshuan, and looked down on the Great Sun sect and the Jiang clan. He had met Yang Tian. A strong sense of shock instantly struck Tianming's chest. The way he looked at Tianyang also changed. This kind of existence, who had suppressed two of the three strongest geniuses in the Cloud Fire territory, had been following him in the vast Heaven Divine Hall. Just for that map. Could it be that the map contained some incomparably terrifying and powerful treasure? Tianyang didn't know that Tianming's heart was racing after hearing his fake name. He casually glanced at the array formation on the door in front of him and understood. He did not know if the array was set up by the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Lord. Although it used the Heaven's Expanse energy as its source of energy, it was much weaker than the Heaven's Expanse Temple in the Vientiane Sky ruins. It was like him, who had just condensed the array Tao origin and had not even seen the door of the God realm. Because Tianyang had condensed the array Tao origin, the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit was much more generous. He gave Tianyang many array discs and array diagrams in the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Originally, these things belonged to the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit after the main body of the Heaven's Expanse Temple was torn apart. He could give them to whoever he wanted. The Heaven's Expanse Divine Stair was just an excuse. Only the top items in the Heaven's Expanse Divine Stair could not be easily taken away by the Heaven's Expanse Holy Spirit. Tianyang's current understanding of the array Tao might not be as good as his understanding of the Sword Tao origin. However, to deal with such a lousy Saint Emperor's array, Tianyang only needed snap. He snapped his fingers. As Tianyang snapped his fingers, a powerful array Tao origin energy was released from Tianyang's fingers. Although he could use the reversing array technique, Tianyang did not want to complicate things that could be simple. The Heavenly Sun's array Tao origin source power was like a gust of wind that violently swallowed up the array on the door. In the next moment, countless overbearing and terrifying array Tao origin energy exploded. The entire array was dismantled and rebuilt. In the end, it was torn apart and turned into the most basic Heaven's Expanse energy and dissipated. Some of it did not dissipate and was even swallowed by Tianyang. However, Tianyang realized that the Heaven's Expanse energy was not the Heaven's Expanse Emperor Realm Expanse energy in the Cloud Fire Path seeking token. However, Tianyang did not care. It's open just like that. Seeing this, Tianming opened his mouth wide, as if an entire fist could be stuffed in. Previously, he had activated his Saint Tao, unleashed his full strength, and even burned his true essence, but he could not shake the array at all. In Yang Tian's hands, With a snap of his fingers, it was all done? Did the difference have to be so big? All right, Tianyang nodded slightly. Then let's go in. Tianyang's lips curled up. He had a feeling that this small hall in the heavens expands temple. Chapter 1521. It was as if the door did not have any other defensive mechanism other than the formation destroyed by Tianyang with a snap of his fingers. Tianyang and Tianming entered easily. However, Tianyang was surprised. The space within this small palace was actually not small. Tianyang released the power of his primordial spirit, and everything within a 10,000-mile radius was under Tianyang's control. However, the small palace only had a diameter of 1,000 miles. This was after taking into account the extra space, such as the other small spaces in the palace. If the main body was included, it would be about 900 miles. This area is about the same as the one in the Vientiane sky ruins. Tianyang nodded slightly. Tianming shivered as he felt that something was not right. What did he mean? What was the Vientiane sky ruins? Could it be that the vast Heaven Divine Hall that belonged to the vast Heaven Divine Mountain existed in other places as well? However, Tianming had been to other realms around the Cloudfire territory, but he had never heard of the Vientiane sky ruins. Instantly, in Tianming's eyes, Tianyang was covered with layers of mysterious veils. Of course, there was also the veil. The structure is about the same as the one in the Vientiane sky ruins. Interesting. Could this be the real, vast Heaven Divine Hall? Tianyang smiled. Then, he brought Tianming with him and flew into the cave in a flash. In fact, Tianyang did not want to bring along a half-holy king. However, although Tianming was weak, there was one thing that Tianyang admired. The second heaven seal of the vast Heaven Divine Mountain had appeared several times. This meant that this person was very familiar with the vast Heaven Divine Hall and the second heaven seal of the vast Heaven Divine Mountain. Tianyang did not have any information on hand and was confused about the entire vast Heaven Divine Mountain. With such a good guide, how could Tianyang let him slip away? However, if Tianming knew that he had become Tianyang's guide because of a few words that he had blurted out in a panic, he would definitely slap himself. He did not know how many times he would slap himself. This is the boundless divine level. When he passed by a place, Tianyang suddenly stopped. Steps that seemed to lead to the heavens were placed in front of Tianyang. Back when it first encountered the Heavens Expanse Temple in the Nine Universe Sky ruins, when Ling Yuhan had almost died because of Xin Yuan Changsheng, Tianyang had frantically charged through the Heavens Expanse Divine Stair. Naturally, he had a deep impression of the Heavens Expanse God stage that had given him the 9 transformations. However, the Vast Expanse Divine Stair and the Vast Expanse Divine Stair in the Vientiane Sky ruins were vastly different, apart from their similar appearances. For example, there was no power of the vast expanse. Even the Saint King formations on the door that seemed to have been powered by inferior vast expanse force did not have the energy to do so. There's a feeling of death. Tianyang frowned slightly. Then, as if he had thought of something, his figure suddenly flashed. Tianming did not even have the time to check if this dead, vast expanse god tier contained any fortuitous opportunities before he was snatched away by Tianyang. Swoosh! Swoosh! Although he had mastered the space-time origin, the special space-time in the vast expanse Holy Mountain made it impossible for Tianyang to open the space door anytime and anywhere. However, with the speed of the 9 transformations, Tianyang was able to reach that place almost like the number 1 family. The Heavens Expanse Temple is a split of the Heavens Expanse Temple, and the Heavens Expanse Temple has a structure specially prepared for weapon spirits. Therefore, the Heavens Expanse Temple also has such a structure. This place is almost certain to be a split of the Heavens Expanse Temple. Therefore, it's possible that there's a weapon spirit here. Tianyang's eyes were burning with flames as he looked at the building that looked like a hall in front of him. His right hand was burning with balls of true flames of destruction. Break! If the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit devoured the other Heavens Expanse Temple Weapon Spirit, then the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit would definitely become stronger again. Perhaps it might even recover more memories. Tianyang did not forget that the reason why the Heavens Expanse Holy Spirit chose to follow him was so that he could collect the Heavens Expanse temple and devour it continuously. One day, it would return to the complete Heavens Expanse temple. Now that there was such an opportunity, Tianyang naturally would not hold back. This is, on the other hand, when Tianming saw the structure of the hall. His face turned pale and his body trembled. Lord Yang Tian, wait a minute. Just as Tianming shouted, the true flames of destruction in Tianyang's right hand suddenly bombarded the hall. Boom! A terrifying loud sound was heard, and balls of black flames rushed to the sky. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. In front of the true flames of destruction that had been upgraded to Stage 9, the hall was completely destroyed without any resistance. However, after the destruction, what came out was not what Tianyang had imagined. It was the weapon spirit of the Heavens Expanse Temple. Instead, demonic chi, balls of black and chaotic air currents, rushed out fiercely. It's demonic chi. Tianming seemed to have confirmed something. His face changed drastically, and he shouted in a trembling voice, Lord Yang Tian, it's demonic chi. Run quickly, run quickly. Tianming shouted crazily. Hearing that, Tianyang frowned slightly. From what he could sense, although the demonic chi was strong, it was only at the level of an ordinary half-holy emperor. In terms of threat, it was not even 1% of the sky-devouring demon god that he had encountered in the Black Sky Great World. What was wrong with Tianming? Even if he was a half-holy emperor, he would not be so cowardly. Get lost. The ball of demonic chi roared crazily and charged toward Tianyang. As for Tianyang, he merely opened his mouth and spat out a single syllable. In the next moment, the violent and powerful demonic chi seemed to have been blown away by a gust of wind and instantly dissipated. At the same time, a sword-shaped mark appeared between Tianyang's eyebrows. A sword shot out from it and charged into the chaotic ball of demonic chi. Devour! Tianyang snorted coldly. At the same time, the power of the sword realm suppressed the ball of demonic chi. The Tianyang sword swept across and devoured the ball of demonic chi. A 9-colored light flashed across the surface of the sword before it flew back into Tianyang's soul sea. The ball of demonic chi was devoured by the Tianyang sword just like that. It did not even give the Tianyang sword a chance to level up. After all, after merging with its Song Emperor sword, the Tianyang sword did not level up even after devouring the sky-devouring demon god's demonic chi, let alone this ball of demonic chi. However, Tianyang still felt that it was a pity, and he sighed. The demonic chi is gone just like that. Tianming's mouth was agape, and his pupils constricted. He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. That infamous demonic aura was gone just like that. Tianyang, on the other hand, ignored Tianming's actions and walked straight into the ruins of the hall. He looked at the empty crystal in the middle and frowned slightly. As expected, Chapter 15:22. There was no weapon spirit. Tianyang looked at the empty crystal with a heavy heart. When the vast expanse Holy Spirit knew that he was coming to the vast expanse Holy Mountain, he told him a lot of information about the vast expanse Emperor Lord and the vast expanse Holy Palace. There was one of them. If the weapon spirit of the vast expanse Holy Palace could appear, he would leave the weapon spirit hall immediately. As for the weapon spirit crystal in the weapon spirit hall, as long as the weapon spirit existed, it would always shine. However, the crystal in front of him, it was a clear blue color, but that was it. The base of the crystal had been dyed black by the demonic chi, and there was even some darkness at the end. Furthermore, there was no light at all. Tianyang reached out his hand and touched it gently. Crack! The blue crystal suddenly shattered. Did the demonic chi destroy the weapon spirit? Or is there some other reason? Tianyang muttered to himself. The vast expanse Holy Palace was a powerful treasure that surpassed ordinary divine weapons. The weapon spirit could be divided infinitely, so it was impossible that there was no weapon spirit in the first place. In other words, there should have been a weapon spirit in this place. Vast expanse Holy Spirit, what do you think? Tianyang asked in his heart. The vast expanse Holy Spirit replied immediately, his voice solemn. Give me the weapon spirit crystal fragments. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly and reached out his hand. The weapon spirit crystal was immediately sent into the vast expanse Holy Palace in the Vientiane Sky Market. Of course, before that, Tianyang had already devoured all the demonic qi on it. The vast expanse Holy Spirit was silent again. Breaking the 9 heavenly seals had already consumed a lot of vast expanse Holy Spirit's energy. And now there was one more. Tianyang shook his head. There were too many secrets in the vast expanse Holy Mountain. He thought that he could pick up something and leave. What's with that look in your eyes? At this moment, Tianyang finally noticed Tianming's eyes, which were filled with respect, fear, and admiration. No. Tianming's voice was trembling, and his lips were trembling. Lord Yang Tian, you destroyed the demonic qi. It's just the demonic qi of a half-holy emperor. I can easily destroy it. I can even fight half-holy emperors who are slightly stronger than you. What's so strange about destroying it? Tianyang asked curiously. This demonic qi was about the same level as Tianming, and it did not have any spiritual intelligence. Even if Tianming's half-holy emperor status was achieved through the accumulation of countless opportunities in the vast sky divine mountain, he shouldn't be so cowardly in comparison. No, that's demonic energy. It's the devil energy that causes the entire god realm to tremble in fear. Even Lin Finghua, Zhang Haoshuan, and the most powerful geniuses in the cloud fire territory in the 5 states would have trouble dealing with the devil qi. Tianming said in a trembling voice. Although the demonic qi was only at the level of a half-holy emperor, if it was released, it's enough to destroy an entire dynasty. Even Luxiong City might be destroyed by it. There were traces of demonic qi in the hall from before. That's why I told you not to make a move. Tianming said fearfully. Hearing this, Tianyang was dumbfounded. What the hell? Indeed, the demonic qi looked terrifying and difficult to deal with. However, it shouldn't be to this extent. Even if Luxiong City wasn't at the godly state, it should be at least a half-god. Wasn't it easy to destroy a demonic qi that was only at the level of a half-holy emperor? Demonic qi is extremely difficult to destroy. Moreover, it can easily absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to increase its strength. If it grows to a certain level, even a holy emperor would not be able to deal with the demonic qi of a half-holy emperor. Therefore, Lord Yang Tian destroyed the demonic qi with a flip of his hand. He's really powerful, Tianming said. He didn't forget to flatter Lin Fan to save the situation. Hearing this, Tianyang thought for a while. Indeed, demonic qi was not easy to deal with. When the demonic blood in the Dragon Emperor's body exploded, he went into seclusion for 1,000 years. Although he was severely injured, Tianyang would have died without him. It was obvious that demonic qi was not easy to deal with. However, did it have to be like this? How many times have you seen demonic qi? Tianyang frowned. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. I've cultivated for a few hundred years, but I've never seen it. It's said that demonic qi only appears once every tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years in the Cloudfire territory. However, every time demonic qi appears, it can destroy a city if it's light, or a country if it's heavy. It can cause endless chaos. That's why the Cloudfire territory is so afraid. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. Tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, whether it was the Tianshao Great World or the Xintian Great World, which one of them hadn't seen hundreds of battles. The demonic race would go on an expedition once every 10,000 years. For a powerful world like the Xintian Great World, it was still fine as it could be dealt with without paying a huge price. However, the Tianshao Great World had to fight to the death every time. Even if they did, there were countless remnants of the demonic race. The spirit of demonic qi in the nest of 1,000 demons, the flame demon king of the great void divine palace, and the demon emperor who had been sealed in the small world of the earthly emperor for countless years. Which one of them wasn't in existence that could shake the world? Tianyang had encountered this kind of thing dozens of times in the 300 years that he had lived in the Tianshao Great World. No wonder. Tianyang spat out these two words. It was only seen once in tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. It was no wonder that the cloud fire realm could not withstand it. Seeing this, although Tian Ming didn't say anything, the curiosity in his eyes grew stronger. Where did this Yang Tian come from? Even the demonic qi could be suppressed so easily. However, you might be disappointed. There aren't any powerful opportunities in this palace, Tianyang said. Hearing this, Tian Ming was stunned and immediately showed great disappointment. He had come here for the opportunity to break through to the Holy Emperor level. His heavenly cloud path was formed by imitating the vast path of the vast sky, sacred mountain. If he wanted to condense the origin, he had to rely on the vast sky, sacred mountain. The second level of heavenly restriction was the limit of a half-holy emperor like him. However, it's not impossible for you to break through to the Holy Emperor level, Tianyang added. Hearing this, Tian Ming was stunned again. In the next moment, a loud roar suddenly sounded. Yang Tian, you scoundrel! How dare you humiliate my great sun sect's senior brother Lin Finghua, and humiliate my great sun sect? Come out and die. Following it, several powerful auras soared into the sky. Every aura had the strength of a holy emperor. Great sun sect. Hearing this loud roar, Tian Ming was so scared that his face turned pale and he sat on the ground. The great sun sect had actually come. The strongest overlord of the cloud fire territory, the great sun sect, had actually come to besiege Tianyang. Tian Ming closed his eyes and could feel the huge lineup of the great sun sect. This Yang Tian had actually offended the great sun sect? You're finally here. Otherwise, I would have thought that the fighting 10 parties were inefficient. Tianyang smiled and walked out of the hall with Tian Ming. Outside, there was already a circle of Great Sun Sect disciples. Chapter 1523. The Great Sun Sect. These 3 words were enough to make the entire cloud fire territory tremble. Whether it was the peak of the godly state, the middle pillars of the great saints and holy emperors, or the geniuses of the saint state and below, the Great Sun Sect was undoubtedly the overlord of the cloud fire territory. This time, the Great Sun Sect came to vast firmament sacred mountain prepared. Not only did they send out Lin Finghua, a peak holy emperor on the true dragon roll, and one of the 3 great geniuses of the cloud fire territory, they also sent out many geniuses who had hopes of reaching the top 50 of the hidden dragon roll, and even the top 5,000 of the true dragon roll. In vast sky sacred mountain, as long as one obtained an opportunity, they would definitely soar. Now, what did Tian Ming see? Such an existence had actually sent out so many disciples to encircle him. Uncle Tian Ming. At this moment, among the group of Great Sun Sect disciples, one of the weaker ones spoke in surprise and bewilderment as he looked at Tian Ming, who was beside Tianyang. Uncle Tian Ming, why are you beside Yang Tian? No. Seeing this, Tian Ming's face instantly turned pale. Just as he was about to speak, he noticed Tianyang's seemingly emotionless expression. Instantly, his heart skipped a beat. If he ran over to the Great Sun Sect now, then Yang Tian, he would probably only need to use one finger to kill him. Tian Ming was very clear about his own capabilities. Tian Xingjian, is this the Uncle Tian Ming that you wasted who knows how many Cloud Fire Path tokens? At this moment, one of the leaders of the Great Sun Sect frowned and spoke. He turned to look at the disciple who had mentioned Tian Ming earlier. There were many Cloud Fire Path tokens in the Great Sun Sect. It was not uncommon for disciples to give them to those who were not qualified for it for their own selfish reasons or in exchange for benefits. However, most of these people were unknown in the Cloud Fire Path token. Even if they died, it would not have much impact on the Great Sun Sect. Therefore, the Great Sun Sect could be considered to have tacitly agreed to this action. However, even if it was tacitly agreed, it could not be done. The Cloud Fire Path tokens that allowed the Great Sun Sect to leave had been given to the enemy. Hearing that, The disciple immediately panicked, and he didn't care about his uncle Tian Ming as he hurriedly spoke. No, that's not it. Senior, listen to me. Tian Ming doesn't have any talent at all. He only agreed to it under the pressure of my father. This person is despicable and shameless. He used his status as my uncle to force me to hand over the Cloudfire path-seeking token. I didn't make a fuss about it, because he was my uncle. However, I never expected that he would dare to be with Yang Tian. The next moment, the disciple of the sacred emperor realm, called Tian Xingjian, jumped out with a vicious look in his eyes. I'll kill him now. Clear the name of the Great Sun Sect. Tian Xingjian roared. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he charged forward. Sharp blades suddenly flashed in his hands. Die. Seeing this, Tian Ming was completely dumbfounded. He was just a small half-sacred emperor. Where did he get the guts to force a sacred emperor, and a sacred emperor who was a disciple of the Great Sun Sect? He had even spent a lot of favors to attract many beauties to serve him. He had served Tian Xingjian so well that he could die from pleasure. In the end, it had turned out like this. He didn't even have a chance to explain. Since that's the case, you have to settle it yourself. Because you know your mistakes and can change, the punishment of being expelled from the sect will be waived for now. However, when you return to the sect in the future, the punishment that should be meted out will not be lesser. The leader of the sacred emperor realm, disciple, said. Hearing that, Tian Xingjian's heart calmed down, and killing intent burst out from his eyes. I'm sorry, uncle. For the future of the younger generation, I can only sacrifice your name a little. The sharp blade shone with a cold light. In the next moment, it slashed towards Tian Ming. Lord Yang Tian, save me. Tian Ming knew that Tian Xingjian was determined to kill him for him. He immediately shouted for help. As for Tian Yang, he looked at the sharp blade in Tian Xingjian's hand with interest. Could it be that the Great Sun Sect is also a sword sect? Then, he raised his right hand. A strong airflow instantly gushed out. Although Tian Yang didn't use any of his true yuan, the power was still extremely terrifying. Seeing that, Tian Xingjian's expression changed drastically. The sharp blade in his hand immediately changed direction and slashed towards the incoming airflow. However, even so, in front of the airflow created by Tian Yang's simple action of raising his right hand, Tian Xingjian's sharp blade was still easily shattered. Boom! Tian Xingjian spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out and fell into the crowd of Great Sun Sect disciples. What? Forcing himself to land on the ground, Tian Xingjian looked at the shards of the sharp blade that Tian Yang had casually deflected with a wave of his hand. With just a raise of his right hand, he had shattered his sun blade? More importantly, there were no traces of true yuan being used. Even the number one person in Great Sun Sect, Lin Fenghua, might not have such strength. Is this the Great Sun Sect's method? Tian Yang disintegrated the shards of the sun blade in his hand into specks of light dust. Then he understood. This sun-dazzling blade shouldn't be some excessively profound martial technique either. It wasn't on the same level as the destructive power of Jiang Haoshuan's ancient suppression heavenly eyes. With a casual sweep of the primal chaos qi, the entire sun blade had been completely broken. However, the martial technique behind this thing is pretty good. The martial technique was very ordinary. However, the martial technique behind it was different. If Tian Yang guessed correctly, this guy should be cultivating the Great Sun Sect's famous and powerful martial technique that shocked the entire Cloudfire territory, the Great Sun Divine Art. Tian Ming, I didn't expect that you would actually rely on this traitor who doesn't respect senior brother Lin Fenghua. At this moment, the leader suddenly let out an angry roar. In the next moment, he stared at Tian Yang with burning eyes. Senior brother Lin Fenghua has gone to fight with Jiang Haoshuan, the 5 states, and the rest for the treasure in Vast Sky Divine Hall. However, don't think that you can be unfettered. My Great Sun Sect's 64 people who have stepped into Vast Sky Divine Mountain will make you, Yang Tian, fall here. The true yuan of a peak holy emperor was released. In the next moment, all 64 people, except for Tian Xingjian, condensed a long sword burning with flames. Seeing this, Tian Ming's face instantly turned pale. It's over. It's completely over now. He wasn't even a cultivator. Half-Holy Emperor was his limit. Why did he have to get involved in vast sky divine mountain? Lu Xiongqing's delicacies, beauties, and a little servant girl from the Leaf family. Farewell. 64 core disciples of the Great Sun Sect. Listen up. The peak Holy Emperor roared. The long sword in his hand released rays of sun force. Chapter 1524. Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. A loud and clear roar was heard. The next moment, peak Holy Kings, late Holy Kings, mid-Holy Kings, early Holy Kings, half-Holy Kings, and heavenly great saints. Countless powerful auras turned into fire dragons that soared into the sky. The majestic heavenly might was enough to illuminate the world. Long swords that burned with the power of the sun were raised high into the sky. The 64 people seemed to have teleported and shifted their positions instantly. They actually occupied the position of the 8 trigrams in an instant. At the same time, they triggered the chi of heaven and earth and condensed it on the tip of their swords. Crimson red almost filled the entire field of vision. Tian Ming was already prostrating himself on the ground with his hands on the ground. He was gasping for air to maintain his normal state. His eyes were filled with fear. Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. It was actually the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. No matter how Tian Ming thought about it, he could not imagine that the Great Sun Sect not only sent out 64 inner core disciples to deal with Yang Tian, but also used the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation. The Great Sun Sect was not a sword sect. However, the Great Sun Sect had an old ancestor who was known as the Master of the Heavenly Fire Sect. This old ancestor was the one who led the Great Sun Sect to conquer the Cloud Fire territory and become the overlord of the Cloud Fire territory. At the same time, he also passed down countless sword formations, sword techniques, and sword techniques. Therefore, after the Master of the Heavenly Fire Sect, the successive masters of the Great Sun Sect all took pride in cultivating sword techniques. The various sword techniques and sword formations that he left behind were also cultivated to an extremely prosperous level. Among them, the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation was the strongest. In the past, the Heavenly Fire Sect Master of the Great Sun Sect used the Heavenly Fire Incinerating Sword Formation alone to severely injure the Jiang clan's Divine Lord Jiang and kill countless demigods. Now, disciples of the Great Sun Sect, follow my orders. The peak Holy Kings roared. Countless sword chi condensed at this moment. Even the sun in the sky shot out countless powerful rays of sun power into the bodies of the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect. Instantly, the auras of the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect soared. Apart from those who were middle Holy Kings and above, the rest had their auras soared by more than a small realm. Even the tyrannical and terrifying sword light in the sky was growing stronger. Seeing this, Tian Ming's face turned even paler. He had long heard that the Great Sun Sect's Heavenly Fire Incineration Sword Formation was incomparably powerful, but Tian Ming never expected it to be this powerful. To think that he would be so terrifyingly powerful. 64 people, regardless of whether they were Saint Kings or not, had the strength to fight against Saint Kings. Now, relying on the power of the Heavenly Fire Incineration Sword Formation, his strength had risen to another level. In other words, even if Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, the 5 prefectures, and even the fighting 10 parties encountered the Heavenly Fire Incineration Sword Array, they could only avoid it. In the next moment, the peak Saint King from the Great Sun Sect madly laughed. He looked at Tian Yang in disdain as he spoke disdainfully. I thought that since Yang Tian could force senior brother Lin Fenghua to retreat and fight Jiang Haoshuan without losing, you would definitely be a powerful genius in the Cloud Fire territory. Now that I look at it, it's just SOSO. Today, I, Li Qiongtian, will step on your bones and become one of the 5 great geniuses in the Cloud Fire territory. Li Qiongtian a peak Saint King, laughed loudly. When Lin Fenghua mentioned Yang Tian to him, his face was full of fear, as if Yang Tian was some terrifying genius. If he encountered him, he would definitely go all out. Previously, when someone suddenly gave him the news of Tianyang's location, he had also cautiously gathered all the inner core disciples in the vast heaven's sacred mountain and was extremely vigilant before he dared to step in. Now, in the face of such a terrifying heavenly fire incineration sword array, he did not destroy it the moment when it was at its weakest, but waited until now. Now, the heavenly fire incineration sword array had been formed. Even if Tianyang wanted to break it, it was almost impossible. Instead, he would be attacked by the heavenly fire incineration sword array. Li Qiongtian dared to conclude that Yang Tian could not be very strong if he did not even have such basic battle wisdom. Lin Fenghua and Jiang Haoshuan probably underestimated their opponent because their opponent was a nobody, allowing Yang Tian to succeed. Seeing this, Tian Ming was in complete despair. Good food, beautiful women, good wine, goodbye to all of them. Your Tian Ming is going to die under the strongest sword array of the Great Sun sect. Seeing this, Tianyang's lips curled up. He looked at the huge sword that had been completely formed. It was as dazzling as a real sun and was surrounded by a crimson halo. The destructive power on it could definitely raise the entire Qingyuan city to the ground. The Great Sun sect was able to dominate the Cloudfire territory and was almost the only overlord. As expected, it had its own foundation. There were many things in the heavenly fire incineration sword array that Tianyang was very interested in. However, it's useless to say anything now. Yang Tian, take your arrogance and ignorance with you to hell. Li Qiongtian roared. He controlled the heavenly fire sword and slashed at Tianyang. The space was torn apart instantly. The violent spatial turbulence seemed to serve as a foil and support for the heavenly fire sword array, greatly increasing the power of the heavenly fire incineration sword array. Seeing this, Tian Ming was in complete despair. He knelt on the ground, not daring to look at the scene in front of him. Tianyang, on the other hand, raised his head and looked at the dazzling greatsword with a gentle smile. The aura of a peak heavenly great saint leaked out. Peak heavenly great saint. Sensing the true essence in Tianyang's body that could be described as weak, Li Qiongtian was stunned. No matter what, Tianyang had fought fiercely with two top prodigies of the Cloudfire territory. At the very least, he was a peak holy emperor. It was a whole realm away from the peak holy emperor that he expected. It seems that the fighting 10 parties didn't tell you about my strength when he tricked you into coming here. At this moment, Li Qiongtian's expression changed. Tricked? Fighting 10 parties? Suddenly, Li Qiongtian felt that something was wrong. However, things had already come to this, so he could only roar. Heavenly fire incineration sword array kill. In an instant, the heavenly fire sword bloomed with endless light and slashed down fiercely. On the other hand, Tianyang smiled slightly. A light lit up between his eyebrows. In his eyes, the undying divine fire burned on the surface of his body. Boom! The heavenly fire sword suddenly fell. Just like that, the heavenly sun took the full brunt of this attack. The monstrous sea of fire erupted at this moment. Seeing this, Li Qiongtian's pupil shrank. At this moment, in Tianyang's spirit's sea, the tiny person formed by divine chains of order and divine Tao, law, suddenly opened his eyes. Break! As if it contained divine sound Taoist rhymes. With a soft cry, the sea of fire suddenly shattered, as if it had never appeared. The 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect who formed the heavenly fire incineration sword array suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. They were seriously injured. Lin Fenghua knew that divine Tao law was powerful, but he didn't know the terror of the indestructible body. Fighting 10 parties only knew that Tianyang was strong. Li Qiongtian didn't know anything. Now, Li Qiongtian finally understood. There were actually 2 possibilities for not breaking the heavenly fire incineration sword array. One was that he didn't have battle wisdom. Chapter 1525. Boom! Following a loud explosion, Even the frighteningly powerful heavenly flame greatsword from before was completely shattered. It turned into a sky full of flames and completely dissipated. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He quietly looked at the 64 people in front of him who had all suffered a backlash and were vomiting blood. He shrugged. To be honest, even Tianyang himself didn't expect the divine Tao law to be so strong. A single word, a single sentence, the divine Tao law released its power, and then the entire heavenly fire greatsword formation collapsed. That's right, it had collapsed. It wasn't because Heavenly Sun was too strong, but because Heavenly Sun's half-step divine soul had used the power of his divine Tao laws to destroy the balance of the entire sword array, causing it to completely collapse. However, Tianyang took the first hit of the heavenly fire greatsword head-on. Even with the indestructible body, it was still much, much worse. This was why Tianyang was shocked. He knew the power of the divine Tao law, but even the indestructible body was so terrifying. This shocked Tianyang. He finally realized the power of the undying bloodline. According to his own investigation, Tian Hao, the possessor of the immortal bloodline, who had awakened the immortal bloodline by accident through atavism, and the undying prince's evaluation, he was almost certain that the density of his immortal bloodline was extremely low. According to Tian Hao, he didn't know how to awaken the undying bloodline with such a concentration. In fact, Tianyang didn't know how he awakened it either. Now that he had cultivated the indestructible body, even his bloodline concentration, which could be considered trash, had become so powerful. Then, what would happen if the undying prince, who came from the undying imperial court, cultivated the indestructible body? The more Tianyang thought about it, the heavier his heart became. After coming to the God world, he realized that the undying prince's strength was so terrifying. But even so, Tianyang didn't waver. He had to move forward. He had to crush everything that stood in his way. With thousands of thoughts running through his mind, Tianyang came back to his senses and realized that the leaders of the 64 Great Sun Sect intersect disciples had more or less recovered their mobility. After all, Tianyang didn't crush the 64 heaven-grade great sages head-on. Instead, it was the heavenly fire incineration sword formation formed by a small number of geniuses. Tianyang was also unlikely to do so. After all, the total amount of true essence of the 64 of them combined was far greater than that of Lin Fenghua and the fighting 10 parties combined. It was just that their combat power could not be added together. You, who the hell are you? Of these 64 people, as a peak Saint Emperor, the strongest of all, and also the strongest disciple of the Great Sun Sect, Li Qiongtian recovered the fastest. When others were just able to move their toes, this person could raise his head and speak. Who is it? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. There weren't many people who asked this question after being beaten up. There's no one like you in the Cloud Fire territory, the Middle Cloud territory, and the other territories around it. There are very few geniuses with the surname Yang even on the True Dragon leaderboard. Those people are extremely far away from the Cloud Fire territory. It's even more impossible for them to come here to participate in the Cloud Fire Path Forum. Who the hell are you? Li Qiongtian stared at Tianyang and said. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. There were so few with the surname Yang. However, Tianyang wouldn't pay too much attention to this loser. I'm whoever you think I am. Then, Tianyang took Tianming and soared into the air, leaving the small palace. Outside the small palace, Tianyang didn't go too far. Instead, he casually found a place to stop and took out the map of the vast heaven palace that he had obtained from Tianming. Lord Yang Tian, you're a magnanimous person. Now that you've even broken the sword formation formed by the 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun Sect, can you be magnanimous and let me off? Tianming said, trembling. Only now did he realize that the seemingly ordinary Tianyang beside him had no special features. He was actually a lunatic. What kind of status did the Great Sun Sect have? Even if they came knocking on their door, they definitely couldn't fight back, even if they had the strength to. If one of them escaped, what followed next would be revenge that would destroy all forces in the Cloud Fire territory, except for a few large sects. Most importantly, Tianyang had the opportunity to kill all 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect, but Tianyang didn't. Instead, he left directly. Which one of the 64 people do you think you can beat? At this moment, Tianyang spoke with a smile. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. I can't beat even one. Then that's it. Tianyang smiled. Now, other than following me, you'll die if you leave. Now, do you still want to leave? Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. Then, he completely collapsed. That's right. Previously, that good nephew of his, Tian Xinjian, didn't give him a chance to explain and directly attacked him, shattering his last hope of leaving Tianyang alive. Now that Tianyang had destroyed the Great Sun sect, he could live, but it also meant that he and Tianyang were tied together. Unless all 64 inner core disciples of the Great Sun sect died, no one would leak the news, and he could leave. However, Tianyang didn't. Him, in the past, he probably wouldn't even be able to break through a layer of skin. Moreover, those 64 people might have already recovered by now. Suddenly, Tianming wanted to cry, but had no tears. This was an unexpected disaster. Let's not talk about this first. With me here, you won't die even if you die, Tianyang said casually. Previously, that Great Sun sect disciple, a peak holy emperor, said that Lin Fenghua, the fighting 10 parties, and Zhang Haoshuan were together to fight for something. Do you know? The 3 fellows from the Heavenly Sun path were all arrogant and proud individuals. If someone else had snatched away an ordinary treasure, they would have let it go. But now, these 3 people were fighting for it? That treasure must be extraordinary. I've been to this vast sky temple many times, and I know all the treasures. Other than a rare treasure that suddenly appeared, there's only one thing that can make a genius like Lin Fenghua lower his face to fight for it. Tianming said. Since he was already tied to Tianyang's chariot, he could only do his best for him. What treasure? Tianyang said with interest. Perhaps it had something to do with the heavens' expanse, Emperor Lord. The semi-finished product of a peak divine artifact, the vast sky exquisite pagoda, on the other side of a vast sky temple. The fighting 10 parties, who were in the midst of a fierce battle, suddenly sensed something. The corner of his mouth curled up, and the purple lightning godly spear in his hand emitted streaks of lightning, forcing Lin Fenghua to retreat. But taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Fenghua also punched the fighting 10 parties. However, neither side was injured. Fighting 10 parties, why did you suddenly stop? Lin Fenghua said. Hearing this, the fighting 10 parties smiled. Chapter 1526. Yang Tian is coming. Fighting 10 parties smiled. Upon hearing this, Zhang Haoshuan and Wu Zhou, who were in the midst of fighting, stopped temporarily. At this moment, they were fighting for the vast heaven exquisite pagoda, just as Tianming had imagined. However, the final battle had yet to begin. Therefore, it was not intense. They were just testing each other before the battle began. Yang Tian is coming. Upon hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face suddenly darkened. He recalled the time when he broke into Tianyang's cultivation array and was forced to retreat by Tianyang's half-step godly soul. He was forced to use his trump card, and in the end, he had to rely on Tianyang's distraction to escape. On the other hand, Zhang Haoshuan's face was extremely ugly. In his eyes, the word suppress glowed faintly. In that battle, Zhang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua were both defeated. They were defeated miserably. If the Zhang clan had not blocked the news in time, Zhang Haoshuan's reputation would have been destroyed. As for Tianyang, Zhang Haoshuan was also full of killing intent. Yang Tian, the guy who fought with Lin Fenghua and Zhang Haoshuan. On the other hand, Wu Zhou's eyes lit up when he heard this. He was eager to try. He clenched his fists tightly. His skinny body seemed to contain infinite power. In his eyes, the flames of battle were burning. Wu Zhou came from a great force that was almost on par with the overlords of the Cloud Fire territory. He was different from Lin Fenghua, fighting 10 parties, and Zhang Haoshuan. Wu Zhou was purely a martial arts fanatic. Previously, when he sparred with Zhang Haoshuan, he almost went all out. Hearing this name that he had heard many times, he was instantly excited. That's right. Hearing this, Fighting 10 Parties nodded slightly. How did you know? Lin Finghua immediately sensed that something was wrong. Hearing this, the Fighting 10 Parties smiled. Your great Sun Sect's inner core disciple is not bad. You're quite courageous. I sent them a message, saying that the Tianyang had explored the small, empty palace. More than 60 of them rushed to that place. I didn't even need to stir them up. In other words, as one of the 3 strongest geniuses in the Cloud Fire territory, your prestige in the Great Sun Sect is indeed not small. Fighting 10 Parties said with a smile. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face instantly turned ugly. Fighting 10 Parties put it nicely, but how could he not know that Li Qiongtian and the others were being used by the Fighting 10 Parties? No wonder he was the one who had turned the entire younger generation of the Cloud Fire territory upside down a few decades ago. On the outside, he looked carefree and ignorant of the world, but in fact he was very good at playing all kinds of dirty tricks. Thinking of this, Lin Fenghua's face suddenly became gloomy to the extreme. The reason why he did not tell Li Qiongtian that Tianyang had divine Tao law and a half-step divine soul was that he was afraid that Li Qiongtian would impulsively challenge Tianyang. The most fatal flaw of the heavenly fire incineration sword formation that he was good at was that it was extremely easy to be affected by divine Tao law. Now that more than 60 people were going, it was just right to exert its greatest power. Li Qiongtian would almost certainly use the heavenly fire incineration sword formation. Don't worry. I've planted spies in that small palace and confirmed that the treasures of your great Sun Sect are not dead. I didn't expect that this young Tian would be so overbearing and so kind. Fighting 10 Parties shook his head and said. Hearing this, Lin Fenghua's face became even gloomier. However, since Li Qiongtian and the others were fine, Lin Fenghua also breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he looked coldly at the Fighting 10 Parties. I know what you mean. It's nothing more than joining forces to deal with Yang Tian. Since Li Qiongtian and the others are fine, I'll agree to you this time. However, Lin Fenghua, will remember the debt of using my Great Sun Sect's inner core disciples. Lin Fenghua said coldly. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan also nodded slightly, anger flashing in his eyes. Back then, Tianyang had taken 2 of the strongest attacks of the ancient suppression Heavenly Eyes and even asked to be humiliated again. He wanted a bloodbath. It seems that Yang Tian's strength is indeed very strong for you to value him so much. On the side, Wu Zhou laughed. Then, I'll be the first to meet him later. His body released endless fighting spirit. Seeing this, the Fighting 10 Parties nodded, coldness flashing in his eyes. Since they didn't agree, then they had to die. What is the vast sky exquisite pagoda? Tianyang looked at Tian Ming and asked curiously. Hearing this, Tian Ming sighed. He really felt that Yang Tian was a savage from the mountains. He knew nothing about the vast sky, sacred mountain, and knew nothing about the second-level heavenly incantation. He didn't even know about the most famous second-level heavenly incantation, the vast sky exquisite pagoda. How did this guy get in? The vast sky exquisite pagoda is the most powerful treasure in the vast sky sacred hall. It's a semi-finished product of the pinnacle of a divine weapon. It's said that it's related to the highest secret of the entire vast sky sacred mountain, the 9th level heavenly incantation. Every time the vast sky sacred mountain opens and the cloud fire path is held, there will definitely be people who want to obtain the vast sky exquisite pagoda. However, in history, the best is only to obtain the treasures within. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. The 9th level heavenly incantation, the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain? Tianyang knew very well that the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain was the treasure left behind by the vast sky emperor. The vast sky exquisite pagoda was actually related to the ultimate secret of the vast sky sacred mountain. In that case, it was worth it to obtain it. We're almost there. At this moment, Tian Ming looked at the silhouette of the pagoda that was getting clearer and clearer. In his heart, he suddenly felt a sense of pride. Previously, when he came here, he was just a pitiful worm who couldn't even be considered a side character in the vast sky, sacred mountain. Now, although he was still not the main character, he could get closer and take a look at the vast sky, exquisite pagoda. Seems like he has some tricks up his sleeves. He actually reacted so quickly. At this moment, Tianyang seemed to have seen something. The corner of his mouth curled up as he chuckled. Hearing this, Tianming was stunned. In the next moment, Tianyang suddenly sped up. His terrifying speed exploded. In an instant, he arrived in front of the vast sky, exquisite pagoda. At this moment, an incomparably huge fist suddenly appeared in front of Tianyang and violently blasted towards Tianyang. Yang Tian, right? Let me, the 5 states, fight you. Following a loud roar, a skinny figure appeared and waved his huge fist. The battle intent on his body actually burned into a substantial flame. 100 War Divine Fist. Yang Tian died. At the same time, 3 angry roars were heard. 3 figures appeared around Tianyang in a flash. The purple lightning was like a raging dragon. The ancient word suppress was blazing. The origin of gold turned into a storm. The 3 major attacks exploded at the same time. Below, Jiang Xian's lips curled into a mysterious smile. Chapter 1527. Out of the 4 sky prides, 3 were close to becoming a half-god, and 1 was a half-god. The total amount of power they released was probably comparable to that of a demigod. After all, the 3 of them were not ordinary peak holy kings, but people on the true dragon roll. You chose not to take the path to heaven, but rather, you chose to barge into hell. Lin Fenghua's eyes were fierce as he slashed out with his sharp blade. Today will be the day you die. Jiang Haoshuan's face was cold as his eyes were filled with killing intent. He had used the strongest power of the ancient suppressing heavenly eyes right from the start. The purple lightning divine spear of the fighting 10 parties was not weak either. The 100 war divine fists of the 5 prefectures seemed to contain endless battle intent. Just one look was enough to ignite one's battle intent. Under the joint attack of the 4 sky prides, even the space around them was shattered. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, without hesitation, in his sea of soul, the heavenly sword released rays of Xinguang. Martial soul talent, devour the heavens. In an instant, the vast power that filled every corner of the vast heavens divine mountain, the boundless spiritual chi of heaven and earth, the sky, and even the vast heavens' exquisite pagoda, all gushed into Tianyang's body. In Tianyang's hand, the great void sword embryo merged with the heavenly sword and appeared. At this moment, the peak heavenly grade, great sage's cultivation, rose to the peak half-holy king. This is my first time using the devouring secret skill. Tianyang smiled and said. Then, the great void sword embryo in his hand slashed out. Heavenly sword. His second martial soul talent was also Tianyang's strongest attack. Sword radiance filled everyone's vision. In an instant, an extremely powerful sword light swept out. Boom, 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 boom. The 4 sky prides of the cloud fire territory, the 4 invincible existences on the true dragon roll, were sent flying by Tianyang's attack. What? Seeing that, the fighting 10 parties were also shocked. He knew that Tianyang was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. As for Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua, their faces were filled with shock. When they had fought Tianyang had not been this strong. To be able to force me to use the heaven-devouring secret technique, you are quite impressive. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up as he chuckled. Hearing this, Jiang Haoshuan and Lin Fenghua's faces turned gloomy, while Wu Zhou spat out a mouthful of blood, but the battle intent in his eyes did not diminish. Haha, the fighting 10 parties really didn't trick me. You, Yang Tian, are really strong. Immediately afterward, Wu Zhou wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, and his whole body was burning with fighting spirit as he rushed forward. 100 War Divine Fist. A giant fist instantly condensed and blasted toward Tianyang. Seeing that, Tianyang's expression did not change, and he swung his sword again. The sword chi swept across and directly broke the giant fist. The 5 prefectures, on the other hand, laughed loudly and did not seem to care at all as they charged forward once again. 100 War Divine Fist. Immediately after, another giant fist condensed and blasted toward Tianyang. Tianyang did the same thing, and a sword chi slashed out and shattered the fist. As for the 5 prefectures, they laughed loudly and charged forward. 100 War Divine Fist. 100 War Divine Fist. 100 War Divine Fist. The 5 prefectures continued to blast out giant fists, while the heavenly sun continued to slash out sword chi. However, as they talked, Tianyang realized that something was wrong. This guy only knew one move. Moreover, this guy's fists were getting stronger and stronger. In the next moment, Tianyang suddenly understood. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes, and he directly slashed out with his sword, sending Wu Zhou flying dozens of miles away. Then, a surprised voice was heard. 100 War Divine Body? This guy's fighting spirit would never decrease, and it kept getting stronger and stronger in the battle. In addition to the name of this move, it was the 100 War Divine Body. That's right. Wu Zhou spat out a mouthful of blood, and then said indifferently, "You're the first person to see through my constitution in a battle. You're strong, really strong." Wu Zhou laughed, scratched his bald head, and then looked at Tianyang with burning fighting spirit. "So let's have another fight." Hearing that, Tianyang was speechless. He was here to snatch the treasure, not to fight with this martial arts maniac. "You're not coming? You have to come even if you don't want to." Seeing that Tianyang did not say anything, Wu Zhou suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth, activated his body movement technique, and rushed forward. 100 War Divine Fist. Get lost. Tianyang's law of the divine Tao flew out and directly restrained Wu Zhou's body, and then looked to the side. At this moment, the 3 people at the side unleashed their killing moves that they had been preparing for a long time. Purple Lightning Spear Dragon. The purple lightning turned into a dragon that was a few miles long, and it fiercely attacked Tianyang. Jiang family secret technique, Dark Burial Destruction. The ancient suppression heavenly eyes released rays of light, and a ray of light flew out. It was just a dot. However, it contained an endless amount of chaotic power. Lin Fenghua was even more direct. A bloodstained long sword shot out. Divine Bloodbone Sword? Wu Zhou was shocked. This is a peak semi-divine artifact stained with divine blood, and you're using it against a semi-divine emperor? However, the 3 people did not reply. At this moment, they only had one thought in their minds. Kill Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. It was different from Li Qiongtian's heavenly fire sword formation. This time, the combined forces of the 4 great prodigies were definitely not to be underestimated. After all, they represented the strongest power of the younger generation in the entire Cloudfire territory. Break! Tianyang snorted coldly, and chaotic energy spread out and condensed on the Great Void sword embryo. Then he slashed out with his sword. 7 great origins fused, 10,000 destruction. Boom, boom, boom. Any one of the 7 great origins had the terrifying power to destroy the Tianshao Great World and Xintian Great World. Now, the 7 great origins had fused. Even if this was the divine realm, the vast heavenly mountain where the vast heavenly emperor's treasures were left behind, it was still enough to shatter space. An endless amount of destructive power burst out. A dazzling sword light stole everyone's sight. In the next second, even Lin Fenghua, the fighting 10 parties, and Jiang Haoshuan could no longer see a trace of the battle. Below, the expression of Jiang Xian, who had been wearing a smile of having everything under her control, froze. Her pretty face was filled with disbelief. Ancient suppression, heavenly eyes. At this moment, the 3 great prodigies spat out blood. The 3 overbearing and invincible attacks that were like a violent storm dissipated into nothingness at this moment. Tianyang stood proudly in the void with a long sword in his hand. Below, the fighting 10 parties, Lin Fenghua, Jiang Haoshuan, and the 5 prefectures who were still in prison were all trembling. What kind of terrifying power was this? Then, Tianyang casually glanced around. Whether it was the 4 great prodigies or the silent onlookers in the distance, they all lowered their proud heads.